This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate first part of What If Naruto Goes to Yokai Academy after 4th Shinobi War. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel, and for more exclusive and spicy content, follow me on Patreon. Link is in the description below. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
In the forest close to the Fire Country border, it was almost midnight. Unaware of his destination, a 16-year-old boy with 3 facial whisker marks wandered through the forest by himself. He was dressed in an orange jumpsuit with black shinobi pants and had spiky blonde hair. The boy was Uzumaki Naruto, the last of the Uzumaki clan, the children of prophecy, the current 10-tailed Jubi holder, and a former Jinchuriki of the great Kyuubi no Kitsune, the 9-tailed demon fox. A few days prior, an epic battle had taken place in the elemental countries. Naruto remembered how the war had ended as he strolled through the forest. He had battled Akatsuki's mastermind, a madman who believed he could use his Moon Eyes plan to create a better world. To achieve his goal, he intended to cast an exceptionally potent genjutsu throughout the shinobi world. With some assistance from his friends and primarily from the Kyuubi, Kurama itself, Naruto was able to kill the man during their fight. He had once restored peace to elemental nations and put an end to the war. But it's impossible to be certain that something similar won't occur in the future. Undoubtedly, a crazy, power-hungry man would attempt to carry out his own scheme to use Jubi's power to bring chaos to this world at some point in the future. Sealing the Jubi inside a Jinchuriki was the best way to ensure that this kind of thing didn't happen again. This was done because it would be impossible to confine a strong being like the Jubi for an extended period of time inside an inanimate object. Naturally, this would raise a crucial question. Who would be resilient enough to endure the sealing procedure and voluntarily bear this burden for the remainder of their lives? Maybe one person can do that. He, Uzumaki Naruto, was that individual. Thus, the question had been addressed with that previous statement. Naruto was to be sealed with the Jubi. And it appeared that all of the forecasts had turned out to be accurate. After the Rikudo Sennin, Naruto became the second Jinchuriki of the 10-tailed Jubi after surviving the sealing process. Even though the choice was strange and nonsensical, it had to be made in order to put an end to the conflict and stop it from happening again. There was nothing Naruto could do at the moment, and he was utterly bored. After the battle, he never returned to Konoha. This was because he needed some time to reflect on everything that had transpired a week prior and to rest before going back to Konoha. He had intended to return to Konoha the following day. His new burden inside his stomach and the loss of his friends make it useless for him to continue walking and pouting. He didn't want to end up like Sasuke Teme, who drowned in his own world due to his animosity toward a particular man following the death of his family. To fulfill his responsibilities as a Konoha shinobi, he must return to his hometown. Naruto laughed at his own idea. Hey, perhaps when I return to Konoha, Tsunade Ba-chan will name me the next Hokage. The erratic ninja apparently didn't want to go to sleep just yet. He was trying to come up with something to do in his spare time to keep himself from getting bored. Maybe I should practice that space Fuinjutsu seal I had learned before all this crap happened. I will head off to Konoha afterwards, Naruto said quietly. Aside from becoming the next Hokage, he had always hoped to become a master of Fuinjutsu like his father. However, he still had a lot of work to do before he could realize that dream. After 30 minutes, Naruto had completed drawing a rather intricate seal. Though somewhat different, it was fairly similar to his father's Hiraishin seal. Naruto's desire to outperform his father was the cause of this. He thus attempted to add more markers to his father's notorious jutsu in an attempt to improve it. He hoped to create a new seal that would enable the user to travel anywhere in the world without even having to mark the location in advance. Naruto nodded at his own creation and started directing his chakra into the seal, saying, "All right. I will give it a try." Naruto sensed that something was amiss with the seal a few seconds after he had directed his chakra into it. He halted the flow of his chakra, but it was too late. Naruto groggily uttered, oh. Just then, a bright light filled the room, and our favorite blonde vanished. A moaning sound came from a shadowy alleyway early in the morning. Naruto woke up feeling a little lightheaded. What was that? My head feels like I got hit by Ba-chan's super-human strength. As he emerged from the alleyway, he noticed something he had never seen before. Naruto muttered under his breath, "Damn. I should have checked the seal before use it right away like that. And now the most important thing is," he said, pausing briefly before freaking out, "where the hell I am now." A bus appeared out of nowhere and almost struck Naruto in the head before he had a chance to consider his current predicament. Luckily, Naruto's status as Elemental Country's top shinobi wasn't a coincidence. Before it accidentally killed him, he managed to dodge the bus by leaping out of its track. When Naruto looked up to see who was speaking, he saw a strange-looking man wearing a dark blue uniform and a hat. "Hey kid, are you alright?" he asked. The man's glowing eyes were fixed on him. Naruto thought, what a weird guy, are those eyes some kind of dujutsu I had never seen before? Before raising an eyebrow and responding, "Of course I am alright," he grinned broadly. With a ghostly gleam in his eyes, the bus driver said, "Alright then, it's good to see you unharmed young man." The bus driver said, "It seems you are not from here, am I correct?" "How do you know?" the blonde boy asked, staring at the bus driver in confusion. The bus driver exhaled cigar smoke after saying, "Well, there are 2 reasons, young man. First, I can tell you're not from here because of you wear unusual clothes. And the second reason is because I can sense a strong Yuki coming from you." After hearing the bus driver's remarks, Naruto swallowed. He didn't want to reveal his identity because this strange-looking man had caused Jubi's container to leak. With a suspicious expression on her face, Naruto asked the bus driver, "And what do you want from me?" If the creepy guy tried to make fun of him, he was prepared to draw his kunai. Before continuing, the bus driver said, "I know because I came from Youkai Academy." Well, don't give me that look, young man." Curious, Naruto asked the bus driver, "Youkai Academy?" "Yes, come on in, young man. I will tell you about the Youkai Academy on the road and maybe you can share your story with me," the bus driver replied. With a nod from the bus driver, Naruto said, "Okay, I will come with you, but I don't think I will tell you about my story though, at least not now." At the bus station, a boy with brown hair was waiting for a bus. He had a red tie on his chest and was dressed in a green school uniform with a white shirt underneath. The boy was anxious. He would begin a new life today as a high school student at Youkai Academy. Although he had never heard of this academy before, his parents had informed him that it was a special school. The boy scoffed in frustration and said, "Where is the school bus that should pick me up anyway? I've already waited here for almost an hour." Soon after, he noticed a bus approaching. After that, he headed straight for the bus. He picked a seat close to the bus's rear. He noticed a blonde man sitting in the front seat who appeared to be having a pleasant chat with the bus driver. He was unable to hear their conversation. He chose to look outside with his hand on his chin because he didn't really care about it. He was considering how dull his time at this new school would be. Well, he had no idea how his life would turn out. After several hours, the uneventful journey to Youkai Academy has finally come to an end. They had already reached the bus stop at Youkai Academy. As they emerged from the bus, Naruto and the boy with the brown hair exchanged glances. The 2 boys were left there when the bus door behind them abruptly closed and it began to move. Naruto greeted his new friend by saying, "Hello, my name is Uzumaki Naruto. What's yours?" Before posing the question, "Are you a new student here?" Sukune answered, "I'm Aono Sukune, it's nice to meet you Naruto-san." Naruto rubbed his head sheepishly and said, "Yeah, I think so, but I need to see the headmaster first, because I haven't registered yet." Sukune grinned and said, "It's okay, I guess, come on Naruto-san, I don't want to come late at my first day here." After 5 minutes, at the moment, the 2 boys were strolling together. There was dense forest on their side, interspersed with a few cemeteries. Naruto strolled at a leisurely pace, disregarding his surroundings. He was considering how to return to Konoha. Perhaps this academy's headmaster was aware of something. The headmaster of this academy is intelligent, the bus driver had informed him. Sukune, on the other hand, was anxious about this location. His parents sent him to a special school, and he didn't realize it was so frightening. Sukune asked his new friend, Naruto-san, "Did you hear something?" "Huh? You mentioned something, Sukune?" Naruto asked, causing his new friend to perspire. Sukune was about to get up when he felt a weight on his chest and saw a gorgeous girl with long pink hair flowing down her back, dressed in a short plaid brown skirt and a green schoolgirl outfit. He also noticed a silver rosary with a red jewel in the center hanging on the pink-haired girl's neck. Before he could respond to Naruto, something struck his head, and a bike crashed into him, sending him and the female figure riding it into the ground. Naruto was amused when he witnessed this mishap. "Wow, Sukune, you work really quickly." The blonde laughed at his new friend's luck or lack thereof, depending on your point of view, and said, "On your first day of school, you already have a cute girl on top of you." "What?" The girl on top of Sukune pushed herself up before he could finish the word, blushing a little from the accident and the compliment from the blonde boy with the adorable whisker marks on his face. She bowed her head and sputteringly apologized to the brown-haired boy on the ground. The pink-haired girl said quickly, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you, I'm anemic, I get dizzy sometimes." Sukune paused, then went on, and that was an accident, right? I think it's okay, I'm alright. Sukune said, so you don't have to apologize. She pouted and said, I'm still sorry, but are you two new students here? My name is Akashiya Mocha, the adorable girl said. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, and the boy over there is Aono Sukune. It's nice to meet you, Mocha. After giving Naruto a brief glance, Mocha turned to face Sukune and said, Oh Sukune, you're bleeding. Mocha's face was so close to Sukune's when she abruptly leaned over him. The boy's eyes widened in mild shock and he blushed red. Mocha put her arms around Sukune's neck and raised her face to meet his. The girl with pink hair was enthralled with the smell of Sukune's blood. She was so desperate for blood that she couldn't help but grab some from the boy in front of her. After licking the blood on his neck, she bit into it to extract more. As he leapt away from the girl, Sukune stammered, What are you doing, Mocha-san? Unavoidably, Naruto thought of a particular snake lady. Similar to her, this Mocha girl appears to have a blood fetish. The girl blushed a little and said shyly, I'm sorry, it was because you're bleeding, and I couldn't help myself, your blood scent was intoxicating for me. Naruto had already surmised what kind of monster this girl was, and Sukune appeared somewhat pale. Concerned by the boy's responses, she said, you see, I'm a vampire. You don't hate vampire, do you? Naruto laughed at Sukune's expense and went on, it's okay, nobody got hurt here, and no, I don't despise vampires. Sukune smiled and said, well, I don't really hate vampire either. However, he was crying anime tears inside. Oh my, a vampire, a real vampire, not just some stories I had read when I was a little boy. Ka.san what kind of school you sent me into? He asked. When the two boys revealed that they didn't despise vampires as most monsters did, Mocha's expression slightly brightened. Now she was ecstatic. In the future, they might develop a close friendship. You can understand why she was so happy now since she had never had any true friends before. Naruto said to his two new friends, come on Sukune, Mocha, we can't spend all day here. You don't want to come late at school, right? Yeah, Naruto.san is right. Come on Mocha.san, let's go to the academy. I think I can see the building not too far away from here. All right, Sukune, Mocha said before posing the question to the boy with the brown hair, but what about Naruto? Will he join us as well? After a brief pause, Naruto said, it's okay, you two go ahead without me. The blonde grinned and said, I will join you two later. You see, I haven't registered as a student in this school yet, so I need to go to find the headmaster now. You two can go first to the class and I promise I will join you later. Both Sukune and Mocha simultaneously said, okay then, see you later Naruto/Naruto.san. Naruto merely waved his hand in their direction. Well, now the two is gone, I should hurry up and find the headmaster of this school. Naruto strolled around the school, attempting to locate the headmaster's office. The size of the academy made it a little challenging for him. If he could search the entire area using his shadow clone technique without disclosing his power, it would be much simpler. For now, he still didn't want to display any of his strength. It took him some time to find his way to the headmaster's office after circling the academy building. He had already knocked on the headmaster's office door multiple times before it opened on its own. Naruto thought, well, that was unexpected. Naruto was taken aback when he walked into the room. Two pairs of glowing eyes were staring at him in the dimly lit room. Fortunately, Naruto didn't feel afraid at all because he had spent many years of his life as a Konoha shinobi. Perhaps if he were anyone else, he wouldn't have the guts to go into this gloomy, dark room in the first place. Naruto said to the two people inside, good morning, my name is, but was cut off before he could say anything more. Uzumaki Naruto, yes I know you, someone had already told me a little story about you kid. Come and sit down here, I know you have a lot of questions to ask and I don't really have a lot of time to spare for you because I have a lot of other things to do. The principal said before inwardly muttering, damn paperwork. Naruto said, well, you're right. I assume that the person who informed the headmaster.san about me was you, the bus driver. With a puff of cigar smoke, the bus driver remarked, yeah kid, right on the first guess I see, you're quite a smart boy. Naruto gave him a deadpan look. It wasn't that difficult to guess, was it? So, headmaster.san, you were already aware that I'm not from this world, correct? The headmaster nodded in response to Naruto's question. Do you possibly know how to return me to my home country? First of all, why don't you tell me how you ended up in this world kid? Maybe I can think some way to send you back to your world. Naruto laughed a little and said, well, actually, it was an accident. You see, I tried to make a new seal but it didn't work the way it should be. In response, Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly and said, I believe I made some mistakes back then. Oh, I can't send you back then if that was the case. What? Why not? This Youkai Academy has you as its headmaster. Headmaster.san, you must be a very intelligent person. Why are you unable to return me to my world or at least provide me with some guidance? I think I like you already, kid. I mean, I can't send you back now, but maybe I can ask some of my friends if they can help you go back to your home, but... However, curious, Naruto asked the headmaster. Why would you want to return home, kid? I can tell you're not popular there. Staying here and starting a new life would be better for you. You're correct. Many people in my village disliked me and some even chose to ignore me. Naruto paused before saying, but I have my precious people back there at my village. In addition, I had already promised myself that I would find a way to return home. You should know that I will never retract my statements, Naruto stated, his eyes resolute. I see, then maybe I will help you, kid, but for that I hope you can do me a favor or two, kid. Okay, Headmaster.san. Could you tell me what you need from me? Naruto questioned the man in front of him who was wearing robes. First, I want you to become a student here at Youkai Academy for the time being, the headmaster responded. Okay, it won't hurt I guess, since I already make 2 new friends here, Naruto sighed. All right. And, well, for the second favor, with a sparkle in his eyes, the headmaster said, I won't tell you now, just be ready when the time comes. Oh, come on, just tell me now, Headmaster.san. I want to know what is the second favor you want me to do. Naruto sighed. I'm sorry, child, but that's all I can ask of you right now. About the second favor, I will tell you shortly. What do you think? Do you agree with it, child? Headmaster.san, it appears that you are keeping something from me. Although I dislike it, I believe I have no other option in this situation. Naruto laughed. I accept it then, just remember that you had already promised me that you will help me find a way to send me back to my home. I hope you will never forget about it, Headmaster.san. That's all I can ask you. Of course, kid. Now please fill this form so you can officially become a student in Youkai Academy. Naruto completed the form, returned it to the headmaster, and received 3 items. Naturally, his new school uniform was the first. He must abide by the rules just like the other students if he wishes to enroll here. That didn't bother him. Later on, though, he would undoubtedly miss his orange jumpsuit. The second was the key to his dorm room. Since it was useless at the moment, he placed it in his pocket. A piece of paper was the third. It included his weekly schedule and the room number for his home class. After giving his feet some chakra, Naruto ran off to locate his homeroom class. He didn't want to arrive at class late. He hoped that Sukune and Mocha were in the same class as him. Meanwhile, 2 figures conversed softly in a distant, dark room. The first figure said, What do you think about that boy, brother? The second figure said, That boy is quite interesting. I think he would bring a great benefit for the plan. The first figure said, Good then, just make sure you watch him closely. The second figure concluded the brief exchange before vanishing as if he had never been there before. Of course, I will put my eyes on him, he is a valuable one after all. For everyone, the start of the school year was typical. The bluish green sky observed everyone at the Youkai Academy going about their daily business on the first day of classes. Occasionally, you could hear the new students introducing themselves. Additionally, the home class teacher introduced themselves. Not much, just a standard formal introduction took place at the academy. As normal as you could say for a school full of monsters in human form anyhow, but if we looked closely, we noticed something intriguing in one of the classroom's corners. A female teacher with a cat-like figure gave a speech to her students about their school in that particular class. In the corner of his classroom sat a boy with brown hair. The boy was trembling with terror. Oh my god, Ka.san. 2.san. I know I have already said this before, but really what kind of school you sent me to? This is not a normal school, while everyone just looks like a normal school boy and girl. The truth was everyone here is some kind of monster that wants to kill me, eat me, torture me, or maybe rape me alive. Sukune was thinking to himself. However, if someone were to look closely, they could see a wide range of emotions on his face, including fear, horror, paleness, and even a slight flush. Sukune concluded his train of thought with a determined expression on his face. Oh well, maybe I got sidetracked a little there, but that's not the point. The point is this new and special school you sent me to is not a school for a normal human boy like me. This is a school for monsters, for God's sake. I must find a way to escape this school as soon as possible. A certain girl with pink hair was thinking about something behind Sukune's seat. She seemed to be considering something enjoyable. Say something about it if her expression is joyful. Akashiya Moka was pleased to be placed in the same homeroom class as Sukune, her new friend. Her joy was short-lived, though, as she was suddenly reminded of a certain boy with blonde hair and adorable whisker marks. She kept wondering where he was at the moment. It was her hope that Naruto would also be present so that she and her two new friends could spend time together as classmates as well as friends. If they were all classmates, they could have a lot of fun. If this school has such a club, they could join it as well. She wasn't harboring feelings for Naruto, at least not right now. Who can predict what the future holds? She wasn't an oracle or anything that could predict the future. She was a vampire, and a cute one at that. Putting future plans aside, she was focused on their homeroom teacher at the moment, completely unaware of her surroundings. She currently receives two different types of stares. One came from a muscular boy with long brown hair who appeared to be a delinquent, and the other from a girl with blue hair who was sitting next to her. A boy with blonde hair remarked, "Damn, it looks like I got lost again. Where the hell is my homeroom class anyway? I'm getting bored now, and hungry too." He was searching for the class that the headmaster had assigned him. If he could find someone to ask for directions, it shouldn't be too difficult, but he can't find anyone. He simply walked around in the hopes that a miracle would occur. In order for him to locate his homeroom or, if available, a ramen stand, he would never be able to overcome his ramen addiction. After about 10 minutes, everyone in the class wondered who was knocking on the door when they heard it. The door suddenly flew open, revealing a figure. Standing motionless and gazing into the classroom was a rather attractive boy with bright blue eyes and blonde hair. The boy's face was adorned with a sheepish grin. It was not long before he began speaking. Hello everyone, I hope I am not too late for the class. I just finished talking to the headmaster and it took me forever to find this class anyway, he said with honesty. He told the truth about why he arrived at class so late because a weak justification, such as getting lost on life's journey or choosing a different route because a black cat crossed his path, would not suffice. To get the new student's attention, the female teacher with the feline-like figure said, "Good morning, I'm Shizuka Nekonomiya, the homeroom teacher for this class, and who are you if I may ask?" "Good morning, Nekonomiya Sensei. I'm Uzumaki Naruto. It's nice to meet you," Naruto said, grinning slightly. "Nice to meet you too, Uzumaki-san. Well, you came late to class, but since it's only the first day you may get this one slip without any problem. Just don't make it a habit in the future." "Sure, Sensei, I'm sure that I won't come late again to the class," Naruto replied. His gaze flitted about the space, observing and attempting to recall every face of his peers. As he continued to examine each of his new classmates one by one, trying to recall their appearances, Naruto remarked, "Wimp boy, muscular man, red-haired girl, bug-eyed girl. Wonder if she has any relation to the Nanabi? Oh well, I will just ask her later. Short boy, tall girl, gray-skinned boy, snake-faced boy. Oh, I hope he isn't Orochimaru's relative. Blue-haired girl with big breast, wow, those are huge." When he saw his two new friends, whom he had only met this morning, his eyes abruptly stopped. Both of them took seats close to the windows in the back corner of the classroom. "Uzumaki-san, you can sit there near the Aono-san seat. Aono-san, please raise your hand up." Naruto grinned as he told his homeroom teacher, "I know Sukune. We already met this morning, so it's not necessary, Nekonomiya Sensei." Naruto yelled before Sukune could raise his hand. "Hi Sukune, Moka, looks like we get the same class after all." With no trace of joy on her face, Moka exclaimed, "Naruto, it's good to see you again. I thought you got assigned to another class because you didn't show up until now." Sukune said, Hello Naruto, we meet again it seems." He was a little happy, but he was also afraid because he was a monster. Then he turned back to face the window and peered out. Naruto raised an eyebrow at his new friend who was acting strangely, thinking, what wrong with this boy? He didn't act like this when we met this morning. "Sukune. Don't be like that, Naruto is our friend, right?" Moka responded. With a kind, worried expression on her lovely face, the pink-haired vampire asked the boy, "Is there something bothering you, Sukune? Or maybe you are not feeling well? If that's so, you should go to the infirmary then." Only to have said boy not respond. Seeing one of her first friends behave in this way is a little upsetting to her. Though she wasn't sure why, she reasoned that she might ask him after school. Naruto looked at Moka and said, "It's all right, Moka." Naruto says, "Sorry for the little commotion, Nekonomiya Sensei." He then sat in his seat close to Sukune. Sukune must have his own reason for acting like that. Just let it go for now, we don't need to make a commotion in the middle of the class like this. Nekonomiya Sensei went on to discuss the history between humans and Youkai, saying, "It's okay, Now let's continue our lesson about the history between human and Youkai. It was around 2000 years ago that there were numerous moans from her students who felt that the history lesson was pointless and dull. Many people believe that knowing about something that occurred a long time ago or not would not help you in life at all. After a few hours, the first day of classes is finally coming to an end. No more pointless history classes and dull lectures. Everyone appeared content and relished their time spent together. While some students simply talked with their new friends, others went to the cafeteria to get something to eat. After school, some even went to their dorm room to take a good nap. Overall, it appears that everyone had a great first day at Youkai Academy. Well, all but one boy, it seems. At the moment, the boy was making his way to the bus station along the edge of the forest. Why he would want to return there is a mystery. For the next 2 weeks or so, the bus would not arrive. The boy is unaware of it, though. The boy continued to walk through the forest toward his destination, thinking to himself, "This is my chance to leave this place. It's now or never." A teenage boy and girl were searching for their friend not far away. Their brown-haired friend was nowhere to be found despite their searches of the dorm rooms, the cafeteria, the infirmary, the teacher's room, and even the eerie headmaster's office. As she continued to sip her favorite tomato juice, Mocha asked the male figure next to her, "Where do you think he go, Naruto?" "I don't know, Mocha. I don't have an idea where is Sukune now, but I hope he doesn't get into trouble," replied Naruto. "But we already searched through the whole academy, Naruto. We already looked for him in all the places that came into my mind," Mocha replied with a worried expression. "Well, that's true, I guess. We already searched the whole school, but I think there is one more place we have yet to look," Naruto replied. "And where would it be?" Mocha inquired once more with an inquisitive gaze. Although she was regarded as a fairly intelligent girl for the academy standard, she couldn't think of any other location to search for Sukune at this time, so it made sense that she would ask her blonde companion. Naruto said, "Outside the school, of course. Where else would he go to get away from everyone?" in a low enough voice for his adorable vampire with pink hair to hear. With tears welling up in her eyes, Mocha asked Naruto, "You don't think that he would leave the academy and not tell us about it, do you?" The last thing she wanted was to lose a friend. Maybe he doesn't like an academy full of monsters?" the girl asked, but Naruto's response didn't meet her expectations. "Why would you say something like that? Sukune wouldn't do something like that, and what make you think that he doesn't like to be here?" Mocha responded. Naruto calmly replied, "Because unlike the other students here, he is a human?" "What? No, I don't believe it. There is no way a mere human could pass the barrier that is surrounding this whole place safely." Mocha replied with disbelief. "I will locate our friend and question him about why he left us in this manner. I don't like that you would make such a baseless accusation about him." Naruto said glumly, "Look, Mocha, maybe this is the best for Sukune, so he won't get into any kind of problems in the future, and also..." Naruto could not finish his sentence because Mocha interrupted him there. "I will go and find Sukune by myself," Mocha said, her voice breaking from the tears she was fighting to contain. "It's fine for me if you don't want to help me find him," the girl said as icily as she could manage. "I don't need your help. Thank you very much," and then she headed into the forest to take care of Sukune. "She's a troublesome girl, isn't she? A vampire? She should therefore be aware that the boy was an ordinary person. She has already tasted his blood." Naruto muttered to himself, "It should be easy for her to sense that the boy has no Youkai at all. Such a troublesome situation, and why did I say troublesome again? I'm afraid I've been spending too much time with Shikamaru, but I'm determined not to let that happen, Datbeo." Following some internal discussion, our favorite blonde made the decision to target Sukune and Mocha, or whoever he could locate first. Alongside Mocha, it has been a little while after her little argument with Naruto, and it didn't end well. She didn't understand why she acted like that towards Naruto, and that she shouldn't have said something that bad towards him along with leaving him like that. It's not her style after all, but it hurt her a lot that Naruto, who was one of her new friend that she had made, could have so little trust, and didn't have any faith in Sukune, her only other friend in this school. She couldn't believe how he say that Sukune is a human. She didn't believe it at all. Her first friend is not a part of that filthy species called human. That can only take advantages toward their own species. Her friend is not the part of that damned society where the rich could do anything they want while the poor could only pray to their gods and hope their fate would somehow change. Her first friend is not the part of the foul society that would declare war only because a trivial matter, like it would solve any problem they have. She couldn't and wouldn't believe it at all. She thought that Sukune wasn't a human boy who enjoyed making fun of their other classmates at school. She couldn't help but feel more tears trickle down her cheeks, discoloring her lovely face, and she thought back to her previous life in junior high school, when she lived among humans. She couldn't stop the memories from coming back to her. She would stop at nothing to get them out of her head at this moment. They had wounded her. She always kept her sadness inside, never letting anyone see through her happy-looking exterior, but on the inside, she was in a lot of pain due to the 3 cursed years she had spent in the human world. She remembered when she still was a little girl, who just started her life as a new student in the junior high school. From the first it has already been hard for her. The upperclassmen at the human school where she went, always made fun of her hair whenever they saw her. Her teacher didn't really pay attention to her. She actually able to make some friends from her own class at this point though, but it only would last for who knows how long. What hurt her most was that only because she had said that she believed in that monsters like vampires, ghouls, witches, succubuses, ice maidens, onas, kappas, lamias, fairies, angels, demons, liches, and the many other kinds of monster did exist. However, her friends laughed at her, hard, mocking her with painful words, calling her a freak, weirdo, and whatnot. She didn't reveal her heritage as a vampire, of course. Who knows what they would do to her if they know about it. One by one her so-called friends left her. She cried a lot every day, but since that day she was hoping that they would somehow forget about it at a later day. But no, they just won't forget about it. Instead they spread it by words to the other students in that school until all the students there called her with harsh words. Her second year of junior high school didn't go any better, and if it was possible, it got worse. She could initially cope with the pain of not having friends by studying in the hopes that someone would notice her if she did better, but that didn't work either. She had to endure the pain again, and yes, she had to spend another year in this place that the human community called school before she could leave to live in the Youkai world. She had heard that there was a monster school called Youkai Academy, but it didn't have junior high school, so she couldn't go there for the time being. Her third year was a nightmare. She cried nearly every day, and someone, for no apparent reason, decided to play a practical joke on her alone. Before she entered the classroom, the student placed a bucket of cold water on the slightly open door. For normal people, this would be a shocking experience. Being hit by a bucket of cold water is a shock, but for vampires, for some reason, water is their weakness. For Mocha, however, it was a really shocking experience. She was unable to move, her entire body convulsed, and only by sheer willpower was able to enter the infirmary to change her wet clothes. She missed a few weeks of school after that. But you know what, that wasn't the worst experience she had. A few weeks after that incident, a human girl approached her and offered her some kindness. It was a day she would never forget for the rest of her life, and it was the start of a well-planned and covert act of betrayal. She was nice to her, but at a cost. She had to do her homework, buy her food and drink, and always be there for her if she needed anything. However, one day, close to graduation, she accepted her friend's invitation, not knowing what was in store. When she and her friend arrived, she couldn't help but wonder what they would do in such a place. An old house with few lights wasn't a pleasant place to be. She knew right away that this was a set-up trap for her, and she was sold by her friend. She tried to flee, but she was caught by them and tied up with a rope. She cried and begged them not to do this, but no one cared. One man approached her and began groping her body, while the other began taking off their own clothes, eager to appreciate the beauty in front of them. In the desperate situation, suddenly a burst of red light came from her rosary. It glowed so bright that everyone in that room must close their eyes to avoid blindness. When the light disappeared, there was no trace of the pink-haired cutie that they had roped. Instead there stood one beautiful silver-haired woman looking at them with hateful red eyes. Her fiery red eyes promised so much pain for everyone in that room. No one could even move a step at the sight before them. A few seconds later painful screams could be heard from the dark room. The room was filled with blood everywhere. It was a gruesome sight. A vampire just slaughtered a dozen of men with vicious cruelty, and one human girl that could never be identified even by the most cunning detective in the world at all. It was a very long night for one Akashia Mocha. She was crying in the middle of bodies covered by blood. She had reverted back to her sealed form immediately after her vampire self killed them all, leave her exhausted there. Her perspective on humanity was forever altered that night. She detested everyone and believed that they should all be put to death using the most brutal means she could imagine. After Mocha left him, he couldn't help but feel a strange sensation in his chest. He was certain that he saw the tears in Mocha's eyes when she left him after their brief argument back there, but he wasn't entirely sure why she was crying. Perhaps he had said something that didn't sit well with Mocha's expectations toward him. Nevertheless, he thought he was right at some point. Sukune is a normal human boy, and he wouldn't be able to survive if he got into a confrontation with a monster. Even the weakest monster would not be able to survive. Naruto was confident in his opinion about the best course of action he could think of. He was unsure of his choice now. But this circumstance brought back memories of his previous life in Konoha, when he recalled Sakura's dejected expression upon realizing that her beloved Sasuke-kun had abandoned her in order to acquire the power he so craved, even if that power came from that snake. Loving, pedophile bastard Orochimaru. Naruto also recalled the time Sakura had asked him to swear to her that he would bring Sasuke back one day so they could remain together as Team 7 once more, but he had broken that pledge. Even though this situation had begun for a different reason, he couldn't help but feel like he was experiencing da copyright yavu because he had caused not one but two gorgeous pink-haired girls to cry, and he felt terrible for himself. Oh, Kami must really love him so much to put him through this kind of situation once more. It didn't matter to him whether Mocha let Sukune go or not, he just knew he couldn't let his new friend down if he could. He couldn't stay like this. He had to do something about this situation. He wasn't the same weak boy he used to be. There is no time for hesitation now, he had made a decision. He will bring Sukune back and make him explain this whole runaway scene to Mocha. He summoned his signature jutsu with his newly discovered resolve, and one clone appeared next to him. Go look for Mocha, Naruto said to his clone. I'll go find Sukune and bring him back myself. All right, boss, let me handle it. With a smile on his face, the clone replied, I will find her in no time, and he started to head toward the forest. Overconfident clone, damn you. Before pushing some chakra into his feet and taking off himself, Naruto mused, I hope he does his job well. After a while, it would be easy for those who were familiar with nature to notice this strange silence in the forest, but if one looked closely, they could see a lone figure walking slowly through it. The figure was a young girl who appeared to be in a state of haze, her eyes staring unfixed as she walked, her long pink hair in a mess, and she seemed a little out of place and out of mind. Her face was stained with tears, and her expression was filled with deep misery and sorrow. The figure was making sniffles as she continued to walk through the forest. The young girl didn't notice the presence behind her until a while later, and when she realized she was no longer alone, she stopped and turned to face the person who had followed her. It appeared that the lone figure had been following her for some time. Why are you in this place? As she wiped the tears from her face, Mocha asked the figure in front of her. Whatever happened to Mocha? I came looking for you because I'm worried about you, the figure inquired. She turned away from her companion and said sharply, HMPH, like you care about me at all. Should I apologize now since she seemed to still be upset with me? Look, Mocha, I'm so, he thought. A third figure appeared out of nowhere before they could finish their conversation. This is an interesting sight, isn't it? The voice of the new figure was mocking. What are you looking for? Continuing, Naruto said, this is not at all your concern. The tall, muscular, brown-haired figure remarked, oh, I have no use for you at all, boy. I came here for the beauty over there. Naruto yelled at the new figure, like hell I will let you get your hands at Mocha. The new figure didn't respond as his body started to swell and his muscles got bigger and bigger, his school uniform was ripped from him, and a bone-like armor appeared on his shoulders, hands, and chest. Once the transformation was complete, the figure licked his lips hungrily and looked down at the two. The figure charged at Mocha, saying, now that you see my true form, you won't have any chance against me. The monster had considered this possibility before attacking her, so he sent his long, slimy tongue toward them afterward. The girl was immobilized as she watched the scene in horror, but it didn't last long because she felt two powerful hands suddenly wrap around her waist and she felt her body being carried away from the danger by jumping out to the nearest tree. The two teenagers were unable to avoid it because they were still in the air, and they felt the tongue tightly encircle them before violently colliding with the nearby tree. I didn't anticipate that, damn it. I'm hoping the boss can get here quickly enough to prevent Mocha from suffering any harm. After crashing through the tree, Mocha landed on the ground, her body hurting so much, but she managed to look at her companion. She was shocked when her blonde companion vanished, and she couldn't comprehend how it could have happened, but she managed to focus and gaze at the menacing figure that approached her slowly. It appears that your blonde friend is actually a weakling, the figure said as he continued to move in the direction of his target. He ran away because he knew he couldn't win this fight against me. N.No, leave. As she attempted to make her body flee the threat in front of her, Mocha spoke in a terrified tone. Remember this, Akashiya Mocha. Tonight, I, Saizo Komiya, will claim you as my own. Saizo started laughing uncontrollably as he moved closer to his target, saying, you should feel honored to serve me with that gorgeous body of yours. In the interim, Sukune was thinking for himself as he made his way across the forest border to the bus stop. His eyes were full of resolve. All he wanted was to leave this new and special school that his parents had sent him. How could they have sent him to a school full of monsters? He had to return home now or never, he thought, and no one would stop him. He eventually arrived at his destination, walked slowly to the bus stop, and noticed the strange-looking scarecrow with the black robe and pumpkin head there. He took the academy bus schedule from the scarecrow and kept a close eye on it. What? No bus is returning to the human world until next month, he yelled incredulously. It's awful. How could this have happened to him? This is completely unfair. Oh no. I've passed away. Sukune remarked, I'm so dead now. What should I do? I can't leave this school. Well, would you mind accompanying me? Behind him, a voice said. When Sukune turned his body to face the voice, he was startled to see a stunning girl with short blue hair, wearing a bright yellow sweater over her white school uniform. She had a very nice body, and as she approached Sukune, she smiled beautifully. The human boy stood motionless, but when he attempted to move, he discovered he was immobile. Come on, stop acting so scared. You know, we could have some fun here. As she proceeded to approach the person with the brown hair, she spoke in a seductive tone. No, please don't get any closer. Sukune stammered, I don't want to die yet, and suddenly began waving both of his hands in front of his face. But the girl didn't seem to stop there. Instead, she approached the boy who was human. Who said I came here to murder you? The girl hummed. Well, maybe I will eat you instead, I'm sure you will like it. Upon hearing those words, the human boy swallowed, and it didn't help at all what he was seeing. With her face inches from Sukune's, she said, Sukune, please close your eyes. Like any other typical hot-blooded adolescent boy, the poor boy was unable to resist the allure of her words, especially from a girl who is so attractive. He blushed wildly and started to close his eyes, waiting for his inevitable demise. He felt nothing after a few minutes. He opened his eyes and looked around, but there was nobody there. Sukune questioned himself, where did she go? But despite his best efforts, he was unable to find the answer. Shivering a little at the ghost part, he asked himself, who was that girl? And what was her true intention doing something like that, then disappearing like a ghost? Who was he to claim that ghosts didn't exist if monsters were real? Sukune searched the area once more, but he was unable to locate the stunning girl. He let out a sigh of relief, grateful that he was still Olivia for the time being. Sukune. He heard someone else call his name. Another monster, he thought as he turned his body to see who had called his name. Uncontrollably, a shiver ran down his spine. He made an effort to collect himself before greeting the new person who had just called his name. Using the same tone he had used in their class earlier that morning, he said to the blonde, Oh, it's you Naruto. Although Naruto didn't like the tone of his voice, he decided to overlook it for the moment. Naruto said, Come on, Sukune, let's go back to the academy. Sukune chose to remain silent rather than respond to the blonde's words. His previous strange encounter with the girl left him feeling cautious. Naruto calmly said, Oh come on Sukune, don't be afraid. I'm not a monster like you think I am. His friend gave him a perplexed look. Unsure of what to say, he asked the blonde, You are not a monster? What are you then? No, I am not. I'm a human like you. Now come on, let's go back already. Naruto replied, Mocha is worried about you. Sukune asked his friend, Really? But how? Why? How could Naruto be this calm? As far as he knows, no human is allowed to come to this place without paying the price with their own life. Before he could get a response, he noticed that Naruto's eyes widened as if something terrible had happened. Come on, Sukune. Mocha is in danger, Naruto declared in a commanding manner. In order to get to Mocha's location as quickly as possible, Naruto lifted his friend's body and placed him on his shoulder. Since he didn't want to leave Sukune there, he simply carried him in this manner. Piggyback and bridle. Style were not an option in this situation. If it were Mocha or any other attractive girl, he wouldn't hesitate to do it, but it's a little unsettling to do it with a guy. In an attempt to save their friend, the two boys had already left their previous location, and they appeared to be unaware of the presence that was now concealed behind the tree, watching them with a serious expression on her face. Alongside Mocha, the pink-haired vampire was fully aware that she was in a terrible situation and that there was nothing she could do to protect herself from Saizo. She had already attempted to flee, but it was unsuccessful because the figure in front of her was too strong and quick for her in her sealed form. She could really use some assistance at this point. She wondered if her friends would come to save her from the repulsive, vile monster in front of her, and she also wondered why her rosary wouldn't reacted in a few months ago when she was almost raped by a dozen old men. She begged, No, please don't do this, but Saizo ignored her. The young girl in front of the brown-haired delinquent boy, who was now in his true form, didn't put up much of a fight, and he was confident that he would get what he wanted. Who would be foolish enough to stop him like this? Why won't you change into what you really are? Are you enjoying this as well, or are you just too scared of me? He spoke to his target in a mocking tone. Please, I will do anything for you but not this. The hybrid orc, displeased with her plea, slapped her before she could finish. He slapped her again after saying, "Shut up, woman, who said you can talk back to me?" She hoped this was a dream, a bad dream, or even a nightmare, but this is a real-life situation, and she truly needed some help here. She started her silent prayer, hoping a miracle would come soon. Tears began to fall down on her face, which was covered in dirt and some bruises. Her uniform was torn apart in some places, but still enough to cover her body. Saizo took her hand and drew her to him impatiently, saying, "Enough fooling around, let's just get this over with." Mocha started to silently pray, "Please anybody help me," she didn't want this kind of thing to happen to her. Before Saizo could do anything more, he was struck hard in the face by an unexpected blow that was powerful enough to send him flying into a large tree behind him. After a brief period of disorientation, he stood up to get ready for the impending fight. The blonde newcomer said, "Ha, that's what you get for what you did to Mocha." Saizo snarled and lunged at Naruto, saying, "How dare you, insolent little worm. You will pay for it dearly." He performed a Rasengan in his hand and ran towards Saizo, saying, "I don't think so. Do you think that little blue ball will surprise me? Come, I'll show you not to play around with this Komiya Saizo," Saizo said mockingly. There was another scene going on while the fight was about to start, shortly after Naruto and Sukune arrived. Sukune quickly regained his composure. Being carried on at such a high speed made him a little lightheaded, but there was a more crucial task at hand, so he ran to Mocha's location and assisted her in moving away from the fight that had just begun between Naruto and Saizo. The girl was still unaware of what was happening there when she was almost raped by a repulsive orc named Saizo, who was then flung backward into a large tree, and she was dragged away from the scene of an impending fight. Mocha-san, are you okay? You're not injured, are you? Before him, the boy questioned the vampire girl. Sukune, the pink-haired girl, asked the human boy in front of her. She seems just realize what's going on there. Yes, I think I'm fine. She looked gratefully at Sukune and said, "Thank you for your help." Mocha-san, I'm happy you're okay, but you shouldn't thank me. Sukune pointed to the blonde boy who was fighting Saizo and said, "Thank him instead." Naruto. Mocha looked in the direction Sukune had instructed, staring at her savior with her stunning green eyes. She couldn't believe what her eyes were telling her, but she believed Naruto had abandoned her in the forest after they first met Saizo. She kept staring at the two boys fighting in front of her and Sukune, but her eyes widened when she saw Naruto create a blue energy ball in his hand. As far as she knew, no monster used that kind of technique at all. Normally, when two monsters fought, they would either use their own strength, like Saizo did, or they would prefer to use an elemental attack, such as fire, earth, water, ice, shadow, darkness, illusion, or another element-based attack. Do you know what that blue energy ball on Naruto's hand is, Sukune? Wondering if the boy next to her knew anything about that, she asked Sukune. Mocha-san, I have no idea. As he watched the fight between the orc and the self-described human, Sukune remarked, "It seems dangerous, though." He was perplexed because he believed that such a thing could only occur in anime, and no normal human should be able to do that, as far as he was aware. As she continued to watch the two fight, Mocha nodded and said, "We should ask him about it later." Sukune firmly replied, "Yes, we should." His gaze remained fixed on the ongoing conflict. With a curious expression on their faces, the two watched the fight between Naruto and Saizo, hoping that Naruto would win easily. Shortly after, Sukune and Mocha were taken aback once more when their friend made an odd hand gesture and then dozens of identical blondes appeared out of nowhere. "Did you see what I saw, Mocha-san? I believe I saw over 30 Narutos there, so perhaps I should visit the doctor to have my eyes examined." "Your eyes aren't deceiving you, Sukune. Let's ask him about those strange attacks he uses, later," Mocha said, adding that she had also witnessed it. Saizo initially believed he could win this fight with ease. Since he was an orc, a race with extreme strength, he was certain that he could crush his opponent like a cockroach, even though he was unsure of the race of his opponent. Saizo thought to himself, what kind of monster did that kind of thing? He had never imagined that his opponent could create dozens of clones of himself, and they were all holding blue energy balls in their hands. Before he could come up with a response, Naruto's clones greeted him with Rasengan over Rasengan. There was no way for him to avoid or block them as he staggered left and right. The final blow was delivered by the actual Naruto, who slammed the blue ball he was holding onto the orc's stomach. The spiraling sphere then began to grind through the orc's abdomen, sending him flying across the forest. Naruto smiled and rubbed his head sheepishly as he approached his two friends, who were still gaping. Oh well, I think I overdid it a little. Jokingly, Naruto said, Hey Mocha, Sukune, you can close your mouth now you know. He attempted to reassure his friends from their shocked expression following the conclusion of his battle with Saizo. Hey, come on guys, don't look at me like that. Whoa. Sukune told his blonde friend, that was cool Naruto. Naruto responded with a cool guy pose and gleaming teeth, which he must have taken from the arrogant Konoha Green Beast number 1, made a guy. Naruto. Mocha gave Naruto a bone crushing hug while repeatedly saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll always help my friends should they need me, Naruto said with a warm smile as he rubbed her back in an attempt to calm her. It's okay, Mocha, you're safe now. The girl appeared to be at ease after a few minutes, and Naruto suppressed a sigh as he recalled his plan to return Sukune from his unsuccessful escape. Hey Mocha, I apologize if I offended you during our brief argument back there. I apologize sincerely, you were crying, weren't you, when my clone discovered you in the forest? Naruto apologized to the girl with pink hair, saying, I'm sorry I didn't know what I said to make you cry like that. No you weren't at fault. Mocha muttered under her breath, her face once more sad, I just remembered about my past life, that's all. Even though they had only been friends for less than a day, Naruto knew better than to ask Mocha about her past because he too had a difficult past life and could truly relate to something like this. If given enough time, perhaps she would tell him about her past, and perhaps he could tell her about his own. Well, it appears that everything will work out in the end. A beautiful girl like you should be happy, so stop being depressed. In an attempt to lift their spirits, Naruto said, so cheer up and throw away that sad look on your face. The girl blushed a little at the compliment. By the way, look who I brought back. Mocha, who had already recovered her upbeat tone, said, oh yes, you're right Naruto. The two boys' perspiration fell at her abrupt mood shift. Mocha approached the boy with brown hair and gave him a forceful blow to the head. What's going through your mind, Sukune? Naruto was concerned about you, and you made me. Perhaps not Naruto, though. She gave the blonde boy a quick glance, causing him to laugh uneasily, and then she went on. Why did you leave us without saying anything? I thought we were friends. Mocha said in a sickly sweet voice that if the question wasn't answered correctly, it would cause a great deal of pain. The two boys are thinking the same thing. Mocha/Mocha.san is scary. I apologize, Mocha.san. I simply couldn't tell you the reason, Sukune replied, glancing at Naruto in the hopes that the blonde would be able to assist her. Mocha squinted. What was the reason for that? Dangerously, she asked. I wonder what the worst thing that may happen if I tell Mocha.san the truth about me and Naruto being human. Sukune pondered, it just because I was a. Sukune started to say something, but Naruto interrupted him. Do you despise people, Mocha? With a serious expression on his face, Naruto questioned the girl with the pink hair. What? Mocha was taken aback because she hadn't anticipated such a question. Naruto asked again, I asked if you hate humans. Why would you ask such a pointless question? She looked at her classmate questioningly and asked. So, do you hate humans? Naruto asked, just answer it, I just want to know. Mocha responded, yes, unsure of the direction this conversation would take. I do despise people. They all deserve to die, she said, her face suddenly taking on a serious expression. With a joyful smile, he said, all right then, so Sukune should die then. The brown-haired person gulped in terror, and me too, Naruto concluded. No. What was the reason behind your statement? Still unsure of where this conversation would go, Mocha asked Naruto. He remarked teasingly, well, and here I thought you were a smart girl. Isn't it obvious? I am human, and so is the brown-haired boy over there, he said coolly. It was a startling realization, and Mocha's eyes widened as she realized that she had been caught completely off guard this time. Her two friends were human, the most heinous race on the planet. How could this have happened to her? She felt fortunate to have made two new friends at this new school, but now she was back to square one. A part of her said that she should leave them now, and perhaps she should kill them both if she had the chance, because all humans should die in the most agonizing manner possible. She didn't know what to do now, but another part of her said that they were her friends, her two new friends, who had been nice to her since they first met. Well, maybe not, but still her friends, and they had saved her from that bastard Saizo. If they didn't care about her at all, they would have allowed that repulsive orc to have his way with her, possibly even joining him. She needed some help because she was having trouble deciding what to do right now. Her mother would advise her to consider this matter more carefully, while her father would say to kill them both without hesitation. A chibi devil Mocha appeared on her left shoulder and said, "Kill those human now, it's your chance to get revenge after all bad things their race did to you." "No, Mocha. Chan, don't do that. You are friends with them." This time, a chibi angel named Mocha appeared on her right shoulder. "You will regret it later if you follow the devil over there. However, how can you tell if they aren't merely acting kind to you before betraying you? It is not going to occur. They will defend you instead, they are decent people. All people are the same, so that's a lie. Only when they have something to gain from you will they behave well. Please, Mocha. Chan, resist the devil's words. Everyone was made differently, so no two people are alike. I got the impression that your friends didn't mean any harm. But they are human. You devil, shut up. I refuse to allow your words to sway Mocha, Chan." "What, did I say something incorrectly? Everything I said earlier was true. Humans should be burned alive in hell because they are a vile species." "Mocha. Chan, you are a good girl. You wouldn't allow this devil to control you, would you? Who claimed that I had manipulated her? Should I bring back those memories from your 3 nice years in the human world so you can remember the anguish and suffering they inflicted upon you, or should I just give her the facts? Please believe me, Mocha. Chan, if only for this moment, and don't listen to her. Give them one chance to show that they are deserving of your friendship. I will do nothing to stop you from leaving them, hurting them, or even killing them if they have done you any harm. Please, just trust me this time." "All right, good. You have to wait and see. After all, only time will reveal the truth to you. You will remember this day and regret not following my advice this time when your human friends betray your trust." After waiting for the pink-haired girl to respond for a few minutes, Naruto began to get nervous because it was taking her too long to say anything and he wondered if he had made another mistake. However, before he could think of anything else, the girl had already regained her composure and was prepared to speak. "I'm worn out. Can we end the day by returning to the dorm?" Looking at her two new friends with fatigue, Mocha said, "Who knows that an internal argument could make her feel so exhausted like this?" Sukune responded, somewhat relieved that Mocha hadn't hurt him despite her hatred of people. "Yeah, I agree with Mocha-san, and I'm tired too, so let's head back to the dorm and call it a day." It seems that only Naruto could make her feel better no matter what. I thought we could spend the rest of the day going out somewhere together so we could know each other better." Naruto pouted cutely, causing Sukune to roll his eyes and Mocha to giggle a little at the blonde's antics. As they began to make their way to the dorm, he said, "All right then, since I'm outvoted here, let's go back to the dorm and call it a day. Please don't make me regret my decision to put my trust on both of you, Naruto, Sukune." For a certain blonde, waking up early in the morning had always been unpleasant. If given the option, he would spend the entire day sleeping and dreaming about ramen. Sadly, today was one of those unpleasant days because he had unintentionally been sent into another dimension. Well, it wasn't that bad. He made two new friends, a cute vampire girl and a human boy. However, because of his foolish agreement with the headmaster of said academy, he was forced to enroll in an academy for monsters. Reluctantly, Naruto got out of his warm bed and showered briefly before putting on his school uniform in preparation for his second day of high school. The blonde muttered as he left his dorm room, "Stupid uniform," as Naruto narrowed his eyes at what he saw in the mirror. "Have you got any oranges?" He could see other students getting ready for school as he was walking down the hallway, but he didn't really care because he was more focused on figuring out how to get to the cafeteria and didn't want to get lost like he had yesterday. Sukune said, "Good morning, Naruto," to the blonde boy. "Good morning, Sukune," Naruto said in response to his friend's greeting. "How was your sleep last night?" He whispered to himself, I'd prefer not to talk about my dream." "Oh, let me guess," Naruto replied. I think I have two possible ideas as to what your dream was last night." "Really, hearing your guesses won't hurt. Why don't you try it?" Sukune inquired inquisitively. "You had a nightmare, to start." He paused for a moment before continuing. "You had a perverted dream about hot, naked girls calling you Sukune-sama." He laughed at his own guess, shocked to see his human companion blushing angrily as a trickle of blood ran down his nose. "I doubt it though, that's the more unlikely scenario," Naruto said, receiving a nod from his brown-haired companion. "You had that dream, didn't you?" Naruto said, squinting. No, it wasn't anything like that," Sukune said quickly. "It was just a replay of yesterday's event. I was wondering if something like that would happen again." "Oh, I see," Naruto said with a wise nod. "You don't need to worry about it. If any of you get into trouble, I promise that I'll help you and kick their asses, he said, giving his friend a reassuring pat on the shoulder. Naruto had thought that Sukune had dreamed about their encounter with Saizo, which resulted in his victory over the orc monster. But Sukune had actually dreamed about his encounter with the girl from the previous day. I suppose I'm grateful, Sukune said. Let's go, Naruto, class will start in 5 minutes. I'll just try to forget about it. What? I missed out on my ramen. With anime tears in his eyes, he yelled. Leave now. Sukune dragged his new blonde friend to class and yelled, we'll be late to our first class if we don't hurry. About half an hour ago, Akashiya Mocha dragged herself out of bed, her body still a little sore from yesterday's incident. She was fortunate that Naruto and Sukune arrived in time to save her from Saizo. The thought of what might have happened if they had arrived any later made her body tremble. Mocha cautiously made her way to her bathroom, opened the water tap, and let the water pour into her bathtub. She undressed, leaving all of her clothes on the floor, and entered the bathtub right away after treating the water with herbs. As she took a bath, she thought about yesterday's bizarre incident. She was fascinated by the power that Naruto had demonstrated in his battle with Saizo, and it was very difficult for her to accept that he was a human as he claimed to be able to make dozones, create an odd blue energy ball, and easily defeat an orc. For an S-class vampire like herself, it was an incredible display of power, and even though she knew her alternate ego would never fall for such an attack, it was still amazing. She didn't know how Naruto could have done it, and if Sukune, a normal human, didn't know the techniques Naruto had used, then she had only one possible explanation. Naruto wasn't a human, or at least a normal human. She thought to herself, I will just ask him about it when we meet later today. Mocha exited her bathtub with water streaming freely down her sensitive body, dried her nude body with her favorite pink towel, and then put on a white bra, a pair of panties, and her school uniform last. She brushed her long, silky, pink hair, satisfied with her appearance, and opened a small box to find a blood transfusion pack, only to be shocked to discover that she was out of them. Mocha chastised herself, saying, oh no, how stupid of me to forget about something this important. She hadn't had any blood for nearly a week, which is why she felt lightheaded yesterday morning before the bicycle accident that left her with two new friends, Naruto and Sukune. Yes, she bit Sukune's neck yesterday, but she was only able to manage a trickle of blood before he freaked out. Mocha laughed at the idea of the scared human boy jumping away from her right away after she sank her teeth into his neck, but it wasn't enough to satisfy her, and the tomato juice could only help. Mocha frowned and looked at the clock, fighting the urge to have some nice, warm, delicious blood. She was almost late for her first class, probably because she had spent too much time in the bath. In order to avoid being late, she hurried out of her dorm and went to the academy building. She got a lot of attention from boys on her way to school, which she didn't mind because she knew that most boys found her attractive and desirable, but over time, the attention grew increasingly bothersome. Hi Mocha-chan. How are you today, Akashiya-san? Good morning. Hello Mocha-san. Nice to meet you. The next words she heard from them seemed rather direct for her, or any girl, for that matter, and those were the only acceptable ones. You still look stunning, Mocha-san. May I give you a kiss? Mocha-chan, would you like to be my girlfriend? I love you, Mocha. Would you mind giving me your phone number? The other boys seemed to think differently, but she could just ignore them. Please become my wife and marry me. Let's make babies and engage in some intense, passionate sex. Mocha-san, may I take pictures of you, naturally, without clothing? Mocha-sama, please use my body as you will. Really? Did they really think they could get into her pants that easily? Silly boys. She hardly knew them, and she was certain that most of them had just learned her name from the other fangirls. She was a little irritated, and the worst part was that she was powerless to put them in their proper place because, in her sealed form, she was nearly as weak as a normal human girl. She was certain that if they tried the same thing to her vampire self, they would be shown their place. Not too distant, on their way to class, a brown-haired boy was dragging his blonde friend when they noticed a girl nearby surrounded by many boys. Sukune, look, isn't that Mocha? Naruto questioned a certain boy who was human next to him. You're correct, Naruto. Without a doubt, that is Mocha-san. Sukune retorted, I wonder what she's doing with so many boys around her. Let's go check if Mocha needs assistance, Sukune. She must be annoyed by their absurd inquiries and other things. Naruto joked to his friend, that girl is way too nice for her own good. Sukune agreed with his blonde friend and nodded, saying, okay Naruto, let's head over there. A rumor circulated among the students that the blonde boy had defeated Saizo, who was regarded as one of the most dangerous students outside the student police. No one knew who started the rumor, but it didn't matter to them because it was better to be safe than sorry. The two boys immediately started toward Mocha's current location, pushing aside the other boys who stood in their way. It looks like you're enjoying yourself with the boys, Mocha. Naruto made fun of his friend with pink hair. Naruto. Mocha pouted sweetly at his remarks, saying, "Don't say something like that, it wasn't good at all." "Good morning Mocha-san," Sukune said, establishing his presence. "Mocha-san, are you okay? Why do you look pale?" Mocha, who had just noticed the other boy, said, "Oh, hello Sukune. Yeah, I'm fine. It's simply because I skipped my regular breakfast." His brown-haired human friend nodded when she reassured him, "Don't worry about me." Naruto didn't believe her. "Don't you need to consume some blood? It's not that hard to guess," he said, causing the girl's eyes to widen in surprise. "To begin with, you are a vampire, and vampires require blood. Second, you attempted to drink Sukune's blood following the fall and claimed to be anemic yesterday." The vampire girl nervously pressed her index fingers together and said, Yes, please give me some blood." "All right, go ahead." The girl blushed a little as Naruto gave her a warm smile and said, "You can drink my blood." "I'm grateful." She gave a joyful shout before swiftly sinking her teeth into Naruto's neck. "Kapuchu." Naruto shoved the vampire girl away from him after a short while. "Ow, I don't know if you're thirsty or hungry, Mocha, but have you had enough? I take it you don't want me to pass away from blood loss. Just now, you nearly sucked me dry." Mocha bowed her head and said, "Oh, I'm sorry Naruto," as if she hadn't heard the blonde's words at all, save for the part about the blood loss, because she didn't want the source of that delicious blood to die. "It's just because your blood is so tasty and delicious, it's the best blood I've ever drank in my life," she said dreamily. Murmuring to himself, "Shikamaru was right, troublesome woman," Naruto said. Sukune joked, "I'm glad she didn't feed on me, but it's troublesome nonetheless. I could have died from blood loss. If I may ask, Naruto, who is this Shikamaru you just mentioned? Are you friends with him?" "Yes, he was," Naruto replied succinctly. "He was? How did he end up?" Sukune inquired, attempting to elicit information from his friend who was blonde. "Sukune, that's a tale for another time. We're almost late for class, so hurry up." The pink-haired vampire continued to mumble something about blood and good taste while she was still in her dream world. Somewhere else, "Hello brother, still as busy as always it seems." "Yes, I have a lot going on. Now, what do you want?" The first figure's lips formed a smirk. "What, I can't visit my own brother? You know how you broke my heart." "What, act, do you want?" The brother figure said in a somber tone, "Don't waste my time here." The first person said, "Oh my, still as rude as always it seems," and then inquired, "How are the preparations? Are they prepared yet?" "No, they're not ready yet, but they will be shortly." "Oh, well, that's good. How's the boy doing? Don't be concerned. I continue to monitor him. If we move forward with our plan, I believe he can be a huge asset." In the interim, Mocha, Naruto, and Sukune had just entered their classroom, where everyone was seated except for Seizu's seat and the seat directly next to Mocha. Since their teacher had just arrived behind them, the three of them took their own seats right away. Today's most exhausting class, after history, was math, and their teacher was a lovely woman with brown hair and round glasses, dressed in a white blouse that exposed a good amount of cleavage and a short black skirt. "Good morning, students. Your math teacher is me," the math teacher said. "My name is Kagome Ririko, but you can call me Ririko, sensei." The boys already had heart-shaped eyes at their teacher's beautiful figure as they chanted, "Good morning, Ririko, sensei," in unison. "All right, turn to the first page of your book. We'll be studying geometry today." With an evil expression on her face, Ririko sensei said, "You should pay attention to the lesson. If I catch you talking to your friends or even slacking off, you will be severely punished." Naruto wasn't really paying attention to the class. He was too busy figuring out how to get back to his original world. It wasn't that he didn't like being here, but it wasn't right if he didn't try at all. All of the students instantly opened their books and began listening to their math teacher because they didn't want to get the promised punishment. "Well, perhaps I should create another seal and use it to access a portal in the same manner as before? No, it won't work," he thought to himself. "The first instance was an anomaly, and it won't recur. In the worst case, I'll be transported to a different world once more. The headmaster San already promised me that he would ask his friends if they knew anything, but I don't really think that they would be any help," he whispered quietly. "Maybe if I could summon a toad here, they can reverse summon me to Mount Myobokuzen and then send me back to Konoha." That's it. Everyone in the class, especially the female teacher, stared at him inquisitively as he let out a loud cry. "Boy, Why are you interfering with my lesson? Ririko. Sensei said perilously, you had better give me a good reason, or I'll punish you for your behavior in my class. I apologize for disturbing the class, Ririko. Sensei. It's really nothing, Naruto said, bowing his head. He lied with ease, saying, I just understand your explanation about solving the geometric equation. It's clear to me now. Having been a ninja for nearly 5 years had definitely helped him in these kinds of situations, and lying and deception were among the most fundamental abilities that every ninja was expected to possess. Ah, okay, said Ririko. Sensei, but please don't stop me from teaching. Do I make it clear that you won't escape punishment the next time? She made a threat. Naruto answered, crystal clear, Sensei. Before returning to his seat, he was eager to leave the classroom so he could attempt to call forth a toad. The class returned to their studies, and Naruto, who had always found schoolwork dull, sighed. When the boring math lesson finally ended after 2 hours, all of the students let out a sigh of relief as soon as Ririko Sensei left the classroom, and Naruto took advantage of the moment to sneak out of the room before the next teacher arrived. Sukune. Where do you think Naruto went? Mocha questioned her friend who was human. After shrugging, Sukune said, I don't know, maybe he needed to use the restroom. Mocha replied, yeah, I guess so, I hope he doesn't take too long. Oh, and what's the reason? Do you already miss him? Sukune questioned the girl with the pink hair. No, it's not anything like that, Mocha blurted out in an attempt to shift the conversation. Look, the teacher is already coming, she said. Still wary of the girl's behavior, Sukune nodded, but he didn't care because they had only been friends for a day and anything could happen in the future. Upon returning to his desk, Sukune discovered a letter sealed with a pink, heart-shaped sticker. His curiosity compelled him to open the letter and read it, which read, Meet me at the rooftop after school. Sukune was perplexed as to why someone would write him a letter for something so trivial, and he noticed a picture of the girl he had met yesterday at the bottom of the letter. Sukune continued to listen to the second teacher's explanation of the various types of monsters, thinking, oh well, I will ask her about it after school. Naruto, too impatient to test his summoning theory later, stood behind the school gym building and made a series of hand signals after checking his surroundings to make sure no one was observing him. All right, let's give it a shot. No jutsu kachiyose. A burst of smoke appeared in front of him as he yelled. A few seconds later, the smoke vanished to reveal nothing at all, not even a tiny tadpole. What? Why didn't it work? Let's try it again, he yelled incredulously. I might not have used enough chakra. No jutsu kachiyose. He shouted once more. He was eager to see the outcome as another burst of smoke materialized in front of him, this time with a noticeably larger cloud. He collapsed to his knees when the smoke had cleared, finding nothing there. Damn it, why isn't it working? The blonde ninja left the area and started to walk back to his class after asking himself, well, if this doesn't work, I'll just find another way. One Uzumaki Naruto would never give up because of something like this. The majority of the students at Youkai Academy had just finished their classes for the day, so they were exhausted. Some went to the cafeteria for lunch to satisfy their hunger, while others returned to their dorms to finish their homework or take a nap. The remaining students simply wandered around the school, engaging in various activities such as chatting with their friends. There was still a brown-haired human boy in the school hallway, though, and he was currently making his way to the rooftop, where he had an appointment. Not exactly an appointment, given that he had received a letter from someone instructing him to meet on the school rooftop after classes ended. The boy thought the same line over and over again as he walked. What ought I to do? And later on, what should I tell her? Should I wait for her to speak or should I ask her what she intends to do? He kept thinking that until he reached the rooftop of Youkai Academy. One wooden door stood between the boy and his destination, and Sukune waited behind it for a few minutes, reflecting on his earlier ideas. The boy hesitated for 5 more minutes before moving his hand slowly, reaching the handle of the door, and opening it. As he stepped out the door, he was greeted by a pleasant breeze that made him forget all of his earlier thoughts. He took a few steps forward and surveyed the rooftop. Sukune sighed. Apparently the girl was still not here, so he sat down to wait for her, and as he waited, a variety of feelings went through his head. First of all, he was anxious, something he had encountered multiple times in the human world during junior high school. His cousin Kyoko, his big sister figure, constantly teased him about his anxiety whenever he approached a girl in his school. Sadly, he never retaliated against her for all the taunting she had done to him. Second, he was intrigued. He wanted to know the girl's motivation, ask her about yesterday's incident, and find out how she knew his name because, as far as he could recall, they had only ever met yesterday. On the third, He was experiencing feelings of insecurity because, although he was a typical human boy in a school full of monsters, he had agreed to meet up with someone who he knew was a monster, just like the other students. He wondered why he had agreed to meet this girl on the rooftop, and he realized it was because he was curious and foolish. Last but not least, he felt bad about not telling his two new friends about this. Mocha must be worried about him now, but even if she loved humans as much as she told him in Naruto yesterday, she was still a nice girl to hang out with. He was grateful that she didn't kill him and his other human friend or reveal their identities to any other students, but it only made him feel worse. Sukune felt that this was one of those situations that he should handle himself, but that didn't lessen his guilt. Naruto had already promised him this morning that he would help him whenever he got into trouble, and he was grateful for that. He should have told Naruto about this as well. Sukune heard a door creak open as he was contemplating his current predicament, and he quickly turned his head in the door's direction. The lovely blue-haired girl from yesterday was there, dressed exactly as he remembered from yesterday's event. A short, plaid, brown skirt that showed off a good portion of her long, slender legs. A bright yellow sweater on top of her white long-sleeved shirt. And a large red ribbon necktie around her neck. The only thing that was different, he noticed, was the purple ribbon that was now on her hair. The girl said, "Hi Sukune," before going on. "I apologize for being late, were you waiting?" He said courteously, "Hello, I didn't get your name yesterday, miss. But no problem, I haven't waited too long here. Actually, I only arrived a short while ago." "You're right, yesterday, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Kurono Kurumu," the girl said, "and I apologize for being so bad." The curvaceous girl gave the human boy a lovely smile and said, "It's nice to meet you." "It's all right, and nice to meet you too Kurumu-san," Sukune said, bowing as is customary in Japanese culture. "You know you don't have to bow to me." "Oh, and please drop the honorific, Sukune," Kurumu said with a small giggle. "I really don't like it," she stated firmly. "You may call me by my name only, or you may call me with Kurumu-chan if you really persist to use an honorific." Kurumu gave him a stern look before he could finish. "I guess it's all right if you said so, Kurumu.sa." He hastily added, "I mean Kurumu-chan." "Sukune, does that sound better?" she chirped joyfully, returning to her cheerful disposition. "Yeah." After saying, "I think so," the human boy was at a loss for words. After a brief pause, she said, "Good. And now to the main point. Why did I call you to come up here today after we met yesterday?" Kurumu grinned. "All right. I'm curious as to why you sent me a letter that invited me to come here if you could just easily told me." Kurumu approached the human boy at a leisurely pace, observing that the boy's anxiety was growing as their distance decreased. She smiled at the boy, causing him to blush, but his anxiety did him no favors. "The reason is that I want to offer you something, Sukune." Kurumu turned to face the anxious human boy in front of him after she approached him directly and carried on their conversation. "What is Kurumu.sa? Kurumu-chan offering?" Before the girl could correct him, he swiftly changed the honorific. With a menacing smile and sparkling eyes, she said, "Well, I want to offer you if you want to be my slave, Sukune." The human boy swallowed. What are you discussing? "I want to be your slave, but why?" Sukune was unhappy with the direction this conversation took and felt that he ought to have told Mocha and Naruto before coming here. Kurumu said quietly, "Oh come on, just say yes and plead your loyalty to me," and then went on, "I'm sure you won't regret it, Sukune." The words, "No, I don't want to be someone's slave," were his own exact words. "Why not?" The girl clarified, "I'm sure it will benefit you, and of course, me too mostly. You want to know what the benefit is for you, right?" "Well, perhaps a little." I didn't understand what was wrong with this girl, so he asked her what the true reason was for this. I didn't like this conversation at all. Why would he want to be a slave? No one in their right mind would want to be someone else's slave. Her calm statement, "For your benefit, only if you choose to become my slave. I won't tell anyone in this school that you are a mere human, so you won't be killed right away," had a profound effect on the human boy, causing his heart to skip a beat. The girl was aware that he was a regular human in a school full of monsters, and if he didn't choose to become her slave, she would likely kill him immediately or report him, which would have the same outcome: he would die. What are you discussing? I'm not human." He attempted to hide who he really was in the hopes that the girl would believe him and forgive him, but the girl was not deceived by his words. Kurumu spat out the final line with disgust, "Don't you dare lie to me, human." Based on her attitude, it appeared that she had also been wronged by humans. "I am aware that you are a human. The same is true for your blonde friend, but I could tell he had a Yuki inside of him. Since he might have been a human, Monster hybrid, I won't do anything to him. Sukune swallowed in terror. The girl was well aware of his human identity. He was unsure of what to say to the girl in front of him. He didn't want to die so young, but he also didn't want to be someone else's slave. He attempted to calm himself, but her next statement upset him. Come on, it's the truth. I'm sure you only use your two friends as a meat shield to protect you if you got into some trouble, she said, pausing briefly. You are human and just like the rest of your species, you try to deny your own identity to save your own life. Unlike you, they are able to defend themselves. Admit it, Sukune, she said in a menacing voice, accusing him of having a nefarious scheme planned for that vampire girl named Mocha as well. No, I won't allow you to speak so poorly of my friends, Sukune yelled. I wouldn't harm my own friends in that way, even if I were a human. You simply have no idea what it means to become friends, do you? The last part of the human's words shocked Kurumu so much that she took a few steps back, turned around, and moved away from the boy for a moment so he wouldn't see the tears that were starting to well up in her eyes. She tried to steel her heart, wiped the tears from her eyes, and stopped walking before turning back to the brown-haired human boy and giving him a glare. You, she yelled, pointing her index finger at the boy. Her sharp nails grew longer and more ready to use as a pair of bat wings appeared on her back. And you dare to talk back to me like that? I already gave you an offer to save your life, and you turn it down. The boy shuddered in terror as she asked, You will pay with your life, I will kill you now. With her hands in front of her, her nails poised to sever the boy in front of her, Kurumu fanned her wings and started to fly toward the human boy. In the interim, Mocha was not enjoying herself. First, her blonde friend left the classroom without telling her or Sukune anything. At first, she and Sukune assumed that he simply needed to use the restroom, but after a few hours, it was far too long for him to be there. If he didn't tell anyone, he must be doing something important. The worst-case scenario was that Naruto got into some trouble, but after witnessing his power yesterday, she was confident that he could handle it on his own. Even if he couldn't, he could still create those clones to divert his opponent and get away. She instantly thought of her other human friend, Sukune. If she was comfortable with Naruto leaving without saying anything, it was because she knew he had the ability to defend himself. Her other friend, Sukune, was different. He was a typical humana, a typical, frail human boy, and what upset Mocha was that he was leaving her without saying anything. A flashback. Let's go find Naruto, Sukune. Mocha told her brown-haired human companion. He's been gone for a few hours already. I apologize, Mocha-san. I'm unable to go with you this afternoon, Sukune said, making his way to the hallway. Sukune. Where are you heading? First, Naruto abandoned her and Sukune in class, and now Sukune is on the verge of leaving her too, Mocha questioned anxiously. Sukune bowed his head and hurriedly left his class. I have something to do right now, I'm sorry Mocha-san, he said. She was furious at the moment because her two new friends had already abandoned her. How could they have done this to her when only yesterday they had become friends, battled a horrible monster, and overcome their problems? If they had said a single word to her, she probably would have understood, but they didn't say a word. She was now alone in the school hallways. The two human friends she had made yesterday seemed to be like the rest of the humans, only being nice to her when they had something to gain from her and leaving her whenever they wanted. She hoped that she would be fortunate enough to find at least one of her friends, but her mind deceived her, recalling memories from her previous life. Like her so-called friends in junior high school, who abandoned her one by one after learning that she believed in the existence of monsters. They abandoned her in this manner once more without considering her feelings. How repulsive those people could be. She recalled her talk with the devil and angel Chibi Mochas yesterday. Was the devil right when he said that she would regret entrusting herself to the two humans? Should she actually kill them, or perhaps report them to the student police, so that they would pay the price with their heads for coming to Youkai Academy? However, the Chibi Angel Mocha had stated that her two new human friends were distinct and different from the other human friends she had in the human world. She claimed that the two human boys would never abandon her, betray her, or use her for their own gain. Instead, they would protect her. She would never forget all of the situations she encountered in the human world, and the pain and suffering she endured simply by placing her trust in a human friend there led to her becoming an outcast in the school. She never imagined that placing her trust would have ended up this way, and it hurt her deeply. Only one day had gone by, and they had already left her alone without saying a word. From the corner of her stunning green eyes, a single tear dropped. Did she make the right choice in trusting these two, or would it come back to haunt her in a way she couldn't have predicted? Should she leave them now before they deserted her later? Her face was now wet with more tears. She was at her breaking point. Sure, she had only known them for a few hours, but why couldn't her two new friends understand her? Friends should be able to understand one another. So why did they do this to her? It was hurtful. She was preoccupied with her personal problems when she heard a voice, more precisely, a shout. No, her friend Sukune's voice was familiar to her, and she quickly wiped the tears from her lovely face, forgetting her earlier thoughts, because she needed to find Sukune as soon as possible. His voice was filled with fear and denial. He must be in some sort of trouble right now, and she had no time to be depressed, moping, sobbing, or crying. Mocha needed to find her human friend right away because she had already been saved from Saizo by him and Naruto, and now she had the opportunity to pay them back by saving Sukune from whatever was bothering him at the moment. The voice she heard from the rooftop prompted her to dash in its direction. Alongside Naruto, after his unsuccessful attempts to summon the toads, he was now making his way to the academy building. He was a little disappointed that his supposedly brilliant idea didn't work out the way he had hoped, but he wasn't particularly depressed because he was confident that he would eventually find another way to return to his original world. He could already see students leaving their classes as he approached the school building. Some went back to their dorms, while others went to the cafeteria. When he heard the word cafeteria, he instantly decided to have some bowls of ramen, as he hadn't had any this morning, and he wondered if the ramen tasted better or worse here than in Ichiraku. With that in mind, he hurried to the cafeteria, where he ordered every flavor of ramen available. Everyone there was shocked and wondered what kind of monster could consume so much ramen. He had just finished his 20th bowl when he suddenly realized something. Oh, I see. I haven't spoken to Sukune or Mocha. Mocha must be concerned. Perhaps they're searching for me now, he thought. Nope, don't worry. This ramen tastes better than Tuchi Ojiazan's. Before I search for them, I'll have another bowl. Naruto paid them after finishing his meal and left the cafeteria for the academy building. Just as he was about to enter, he heard a Shota. He assumed it was Sukune's voice coming from the rooftop, so he moved behind the building. He walked up the building's wall toward the voice after waiting a few minutes to make sure no one was there. Alongside Mocha, when Mocha finally arrived at the door of the rooftop, she opened it with wide eyes and saw a blue-haired succubus girl flying at high speed toward Sukune, her sharp nails pointing at his neck with the intention of killing him. Even though she detested humans, Mocha probably could overlook this one because she would never be able to forgive herself if she allowed her friend to be killed in front of her. With that resolve, she outran the succubus girl and threw the human boy to the ground just before the succubus nails made contact with his neck. If she had been a second later, Sukune would have likely been bleeding to death right now, so Mocha was relieved that she had been able to save him in time. However, it wasn't over yet, as one enraged succubus now stood in front of them and gave them a fierce look. You dare not interrupt me? With her purple eyes glaring fiercely at the vampire girl, the blue-haired girl yelled at Mocha. Mocha.san. Sukune stammered, unable to believe what his eyes were displaying at that moment. His friend with the pink hair saved him. Don't worry, Sukune. The human blushed slightly as Mocha looked directly into his eyes and said, I don't know why you are here with that succubus, but I won't let her kill you. Mocha.san. Thank you. Sukune stumbled, you saved my life. Enough. Akashiya Mocha, first you ruined my plan to get all the boys in this school and now you saved that disgusting human from his inevitable fate, Kurumu yelled as she approached the two friends. He has to be killed. Let me finish it already, you shouldn't defend him. You now have to pay me for all of your wrongdoings. Just die already, Kurumu said, lunging toward the two with her claws in front of her. This time, she was quicker because she allowed her feelings to run wild. Kurumu's long, sharp nails were able to scratch the skin of both the normal human boy and the sealed vampire girl, who had no chance of escaping the attack. She turned back and flew towards them once more, this time concentrating on her primary target of the human must die at her hands today. Kurumu was about to drive her nails into Sukune's neck when Mocha shoved the human boy aside, but Mocha was struck instead. Yeah. Although it wouldn't be fatal for a vampire like her, the pink-haired girl's involuntary scream resulted in a fairly deep cut on her collarbones that extended all the way down her back. It would take much longer to heal in her sealed form. How are you, Mocha.san? When Sukune noticed a deep cut on his friend's back, he asked anxiously, if it weren't for his reckless behavior, she wouldn't have gotten that terrible cut on her back. Sukune was furious because he knew that if he had even a small amount of power, he wouldn't have to put her in this kind of situation again. Sukune, I'm fine. It will heal shortly. Mocha grinned at the boy, but I'm afraid I can't be much help from now on. If you could try to remove the rosario from my neck, I can transform into a really strong and vampire, she said gravely. After giving a nod, Sukune said, Alright Mocha.san, I will try to remove it from your neck. In a hurry, He put his hands on Mocha's rosary and tugged, but it remained fastened to the girl's choker. Mocha tried to get up and face the impending danger in front of them, but she sighed and said, "It's okay, Sukune, you already tried your best." The vampire girl was still too weak from her recent injury, and the human boy simply didn't want to leave his injured friend like that, so Mocha and Sukune remained where they were, prepared for whatever might happen to them. The blue-haired succubus was already flying towards them, ready to cut them again with her nails. They sensed someone's presence behind them before anything could happen to them, and a moment later they were speeding away from the enraged blue-haired succubus that had missed her target. "Hey, am I not late?" Naruto gave his two friends a kind smile. "No, you're not. You arrived just in time. You saved our lives there, so thank you very much," Sukune said. But the pink-haired vampire had a shocked expression on her face. My Rosario," she said, staring down at her choker, which was empty. "Oh, this? I apologize, Mocha," Naruto said, holding the Rosario in his hand. "It appears that I broke it while transporting Sukune and you out of danger." He smiled sheepishly at her and said, "I'll buy you a new one later." The sky turned from bright blue to blood-red, the sun was replaced by a pale red moon, and everyone appeared shocked by what they saw. The pink-haired girl remained silent as a sudden burst of Yuki engulfed her entire body. Mocha's body started to change. Hundreds of bats flew out around her, covering her whole body, and her long, pink hair turned bright silver. A few seconds later, the bats flew away from her body, revealing the new figure that had taken Mocha's place. The cute pink-haired girl was gone, replaced by a silver-haired vampire who was beautiful but deadly, folded her arms over her ostensibly larger bust, and glared dangerously at everyone with her blood-red eyes. Her entire body exuded an unfathomable amount of killing intent. Kurumu's body shook in fear. She knew that vampires were one of the strongest, if not the strongest, monsters out there, but she had never had the misfortune of meeting a vampire before, and she never imagined it would be this terrifying. Naruto was the only one who did not tremble in fear, as he had felt strong killing intent like this so many times before. The human boy appeared to be in the worst situation. He had never experienced anything like this in his life. He felt as though he was being choked, making it difficult for him to breathe. Fortunately, the killing intent subsided slightly, allowing him to breathe once more. "What is in this place?" A weak human boy. She looked in Sukune's direction for a second. "A pathetic succubus that had attempted to hurt my other self." She glared at Kurumu, and another human boy with something sealed inside his body who happened to have awakened me. Mocha questioned, keeping her arms folded in front of her chest. "So you're the one who tried to harm me in my sealed form?" Inner Mocha said, flicking her silver bangs as she approached Kurumu with her left hand on her hip. The young, curvaceous succubus gulped in terror but immediately assumed her battle stance, determined to resist the vampire's attack even though she knew she had little chance of defeating an S-class vampire. Kurumu did not wait for the vampire to attack, so she lunged at Inner Mocha and swiped her with her sharp nails. Inner Mocha easily sidestepped to her left, avoiding the young succubus's attack, and before Kurumu could do anything else, she fell to her knees when a hard knee struck her stomach. A second later, she was flying backwards from where she had been before Inner Mocha had already swung her foot in a full kick that struck the young succubus squarely on her left cheek, sending the blue-haired girl flying from her previous position. Kurumu attempted to move her wings as she flew backward to avoid colliding with the wall behind her, but Inner Mocha had already materialized behind her before she could do so. "Be aware of your position." She kicked the busty girl again, sending her flying in the other direction. Kurumu had no idea that her battle with the vampire would end so swiftly, and her back struck the wall behind her, nearly knocking her out. Kurumu heard Inner Mocha's voice in front of her, "Move out of my way, human," and when she opened her eyes, Sukune was standing there with his hands outstretched. "No, Mocha-san, please stop it." Sukune bravely attempted to thwart Mocha's murderous intent, saying, "Kurumu-chan has already endured enough pain. There is no need to hurt her anymore." Kurumu was shocked to see the human boy standing in front of her. She had already wronged him multiple times, and today was no exception. She had made him her slave, insulted him, maimed him, injured his close friend, and nearly killed him, had he not been saved by Naruto. However, this human boy, stood in front of her to prevent the angry vampire from causing her any more pain, and she couldn't understand why he would do such a nice thing for her. But Inner Mocha didn't hear him, so she rolled her eyes and kicked the human boy hard, sending him flying across the school's roof. Inner Mocha told Kurumu, "Now, I will finish you off. Which one should I rip first? Your wings or your tail? Better yet, I'll tear them both to shreds simultaneously." After taking a few slow steps in the direction of the young succubus, the silver-haired vampire was stopped by a human boy who was directly in her way. When the blonde boy in front of her refused to move, Inner Mocha scowled and said, "Move," in a commanding tone. Stupid humans and their weak hearts, she thought. She delivered another strong blow to Naruto's head, but his hands blocked it. The blow was strong enough to cause some bruises, but they went away almost immediately. "No, I will not allow you to continue harming this girl. She's already been punished," Naruto remarked sharply. Inner Mocha said, "I've already warned you, if you don't move, I'll force you to." Though the boy was able to block Inner Mocha's next kick, she managed to send another kick at the blonde boy's stomach, causing him to groan in agony. Despite this, he would not be easily defeated, so Naruto got up and created multiple shadow clones to help him fight. The clones, however, were short-lived, as Inner Mocha countered with her powerful kicks and avoided most of the clones' blows. As Inner Mocha was busy fighting the clones, the real Naruto slipped behind her and swiftly formed a Rasengan in his hand, avoiding the use of his more powerful jutsu because he knew that the Mocha in front of him shared the same body as the other Mocha, so if he injured this Mocha, it would also harm the other. When Inner Mocha turned around and aimed a kick at Naruto, he attempted to slam his Rasengan into her back, but instead of hitting her back as he had intended, instead it struck her stomach. The blonde frowned because the wound caused by Naruto's attack had already healed instantly, even though the spiraling attack tore off some of her clothing where the blue ball of energy struck her, exposing her smooth white skin. She, like me, has a remarkable capacity for healing. So, this battle won't be simple, Naruto reflected. Even though Naruto was making every effort to avoid dealing significant damage to the vampire, he was unable to harm his new friend, even though the person in front of him was her alternate self. The two fighters continued their battle, exchanging blows and kicks, and neither of them appeared to be tired at all. Each wound they inflicted on the other healed instantly, prolonging the fight. Sukune had just regained consciousness not far away, and the last he remembered was being kicked hard by the silver-haired Mocha. Sukune glanced at Naruto and Inner Mocha, who were fighting at the moment, and was relieved to see that the blue-haired succubus was well. It appeared that Naruto had prevented Inner Mocha from injuring the girl anymore. He didn't like watching his blonde friend fight with his other friend, so he had to figure out how to stop them from fighting because he would die instantly if he got in the way of the fight, so he did the only thing he could do at the time. Think. A few minutes later, he had a sudden realization that caused his eyes to widen. Naruto. The rosary. In the hopes that the blonde boy would hear him, Sukune yelled as loudly as he could. When Naruto heard his brown-haired friend's voice, he knew what he had to do, a difficult but manageable task, which was to hold Inner Mocha motionless for a few seconds and then snap her rosary back into place. Another kick was aimed at his head before he could come up with a plan. Seeing an opening, he swiftly applied a lot of chakra to his feet, and rather than dodging or blocking the kick, he advanced and tackled Inner Mocha to the ground. The vampire girl's face was red not from embarrassment, but from anger, and she moved her legs in an attempt to launch the boy on top of her into the air as the two fell to the ground together, Naruto on top of Inner Mocha. If someone had stepped onto the rooftop at this point, they would have assumed that the two teenagers were engaging in indecent behavior. Before Mocha could kick him, though, Naruto swiftly snapped her rosary back into place. He wasn't sure what would happen if he received an extra powerful kick on his family jewels, but he reasoned that his healing ability would quickly heal it. However, the blonde boy wasn't willing to put his theory to the test. Inner Mocha instantly transformed back into her sealed form after placing the rosary back in its proper place. The pink-haired Mocha remained in a precarious position with Naruto, and her face was still red, but this time it was red with embarrassment rather than rage. Naruto remained where they were and grinned at the girl with the pink hair. "I'm glad you're back, Mocha," he said. Mocha moved her head closer to Naruto's and said, "Thank you, Naruto," in response to the blonde's statement. "I'm sorry, Naruto." Kapuchu, gosh. Fortunately for Mocha, he still allowed her to feed on his blood. "You should ask me first before drinking my blood." Naruto was taken aback by the unexpected event rather than hurt by the girl's fang. The two swiftly stood up after Mocha finished her lunch and started to move in the direction of Sukune and Kurumu. It appeared that the human boy had already begun to approach them when Mocha was consuming Naruto's blood. The blue-haired succubus was crying when Mocha and Naruto arrived at Sukune and Kurumu's house. "Why? You helped me, but why, for me? Why would you take a hit?" Kurumu asked the human boy quite angrily, striking him in the chest with each question. "Why, Sukune?" she said after pausing for a moment. "I had insulted you, blackmailed you, made you my slave, hurt your friend, and nearly killed you. One sentence, because I want to be your friend, addressed Kurumu's whole query. F. Friend? She stumbled incredulously. Indeed, Kurumu-chan. He smiled at the sobbing girl and said, I want to be your friend, and I'm sure Mocha and Naruto would be happy to be your friends too. Kurumu glanced at her classmates with blonde and pink hair, and they all nodded. Kurumu, I'd like to be your friend, however, only if you swear to the blue-haired girl that you won't attempt to harm Mocha or Sukune once more. Me too, let's become friends, Kurumu-chan, Mocha said, giving the sobbing girl a hug. She was glad that she had the opportunity to make a new friend today. I swear. Kurumu wiped away her tears and said, Thank you, everyone. I won't try to hurt any of you again. Sukune said, Come on, let's go back already, and her friends nodded. Okay. Come on, let's go back, Sukune said, and the 3 other students joined in. Somewhere else, all right. In a dimly lit room, a man stated, Now that the Shinso blood in that girl's vein has awakened once more, my plan can go farther. That boy really useful for my plan, he brings more benefit than I previously thought he would. The figure chuckled uncontrollably at his own statements. Nobody was aware of his strategy or the advantages he frequently mentioned, but one thing was certain. It wouldn't benefit anyone but himself. Naruto had just woken up from a restful night's sleep, and since it was his 3rd day of high school, he hastily showered and got ready for the day. Naruto noticed that Sukune was approaching him as he left his room after completing all of his preparations, and he noticed that Sukune had some bandages covering the injury he had sustained from Inner Mocha's kick the day before. Sukune said, Good morning, Naruto, to the blonde boy. Hi Sukune, you seem happy today, Naruto remarked before going on. Any specific reason? As he joined the human boy, he questioned Sukune. Telling Naruto, I just happy that we made a new friend yesterday, the boy with the brown hair said. Naruto sheepishly scratched the back of his head, causing his human companion to perspire. Oh right, I almost forgot about her, he said. It's still early, so how about we eat breakfast before class? Come on, let's go, Naruto, Sukune said. He proposed. The blonde boy didn't need to be reminded twice because Naruto grabbed Sukune's wrist and dragged him across the dorm rooms to the cafeteria as soon as his brain processed his friend's invitation. When Naruto and Sukune finally made it to the cafeteria, they looked around and noticed that most of the other students appeared to be eating breakfast as well. They saw a big boy eating a lot in one of the cafeteria's corners, and they saw a short boy wearing glasses eating a strange soup that looked like slime. They quickly turned away in disgust. After searching for a seat, Naruto and Sukune found an empty table in the cafeteria's corner. Some girls had just finished their breakfast and left the table empty, so Naruto and Sukune quickly took it before anyone could think to take it away from them. They were fortunate to find the table. The cafeteria was nearly full because many students were now eating breakfast. Naruto and Sukune heard a familiar voice say, Good morning, Naruto, Sukune, just a few seconds after they had taken their seats. Would it be okay if we joined you? Oh. Sukune said to the 2 girls, Good morning, Mocha-san, Kurumu-chan. Of course not. Just come and sit down. The pink-haired girl asked. It would be nice to have a breakfast together. Sukune responded. Hooray! Good morning, Sukune, the blue-haired girl said to the human boy as she pressed his face against her enormous breast to suffocate him. The human boy's entire face was getting redder and redder as time went on, and Naruto and Mocha were sweating at what they saw. They weren't sure if Sukune's face was red from embarrassment, perversion, or oxygen deprivation, but they were certain that it wouldn't be long before he passed out from either of the two. Mocha chose to protect her human friend from his torture or fortune, depending on your point of view, because she was a good and compassionate girl. With some assistance from Naruto, Mocha was eventually able to free the human boy from Kurumu's hold after initially failing to do so. Sukune said, Don't do that again, Kurumu-chan, and the blue-haired succubus nodded. To ensure no one could hear, she muttered the final line, Okay Sukune, I won't do that again. For now, under her breath. Hey everyone, may we begin placing our breakfast orders right away? I'm hungry, Naruto whimpered, his stomach growling in support of his groan, causing the boy to flush with shame. Sukune stated, I think I will just order a bowl of rice and miso soup for today. Before going on, Kurumu-chan, what do you want? He questioned his new friend with blue hair. Kurumu gave the human boy a questioning look and then asked the vampire girl what she wanted for breakfast, grinning broadly as she replied, I will order the same thing as you, Sukune. But the girl with the pink hair simply pressed her index fingers together and gazed at the floor, as though something fascinating was taking place there. You want some blood for breakfast, right? Naruto sighed. He inquired with the vampire girl next to him. With a shy nod, Mocha said, "Why? Yes, but I can't." And the blonde boy gave her a questioning glance. "Why not? Would you mind explaining?" Naruto pushed her further, saying, "Come on, Mocha, this isn't like you." After she failed to respond to his question. "Tell us now, please. You mean we're your friends?" The last part of Naruto's statement caused Mocha's eyes to widen a little, and she hesitated for a moment before responding to the blonde's query. "It's because yesterday, I caused you pain." Naruto stopped her as he put his fingers on her lips. "All of you," she said, looking down as she explained the situation to her friends. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you, I just." Naruto comfortingly said, "Shush, calm down, Mocha. It wasn't your fault. We know it was the other Mocha that was in control of your body yesterday." The pink-haired girl felt more at ease when Naruto smiled at her. "It was partially my fault too, since I was the one who released her from the seal. So there is no need for you to feel sorry at all, since it wasn't you that happened to kick us like a boxing champion yesterday," Naruto said, laughing at his own joke. It was unclear where he got the boxing part from, but it's possible that he heard it from other students or watched the sport on television. Mocha's face brightened slightly, and she glanced at her friends one by one, observing that they were all grinning at her, not displaying any signs of anger. She was fortunate to have understanding friends like them, and she hoped that this moment would last forever. Although one of her friends was human, he was nothing like the vile friends she had in the human world. Kurumu said, "It's true, Mocha, we aren't angry at you," and then went on, "I really need to apologize to all of you. It would never have occurred if I hadn't initiated the altercation yesterday." Sukune entered the discussion and said, "Don't say something like that, Kurumu-chan. It's all right now. We would never have become friends the way we are now if you hadn't shown up yesterday," he said, receiving nods from each of them. "Hooray! You are the greatest, Sukune." "I was aware of it." Kurumu uttered those words before preparing to suffocate Sukune in her enormous breasts once more, but her plan was foiled when Mocha and Naruto intervened. Kurumu pouted and said, "You're so mean," which made everyone in the room laugh a little. Naruto called the waitress and ordered, "I would like to order 2 bowls of rice and miso soup for my friends over there," Naruto said, getting a nod from the waitress. "For me, I would like a bowl of each of the following: pork ramen, shrimp ramen, miso butter ramen, roast beef ramen, teriyaki chicken ramen, mushroom ramen, smoked ham ramen, oriental ramena." He paused for a moment and frowned. "I think that's enough for now. I will call you again if we need anything else." The faces of the waitress, Mocha, Kurumu, and Sukune were priceless. They were staring at the blonde's order with wide eyes. They had never encountered someone with such a voracious appetite for ramen. Was he truly that hungry? "Hey, come on, don't give me that look," Naruto whimpered. "I only ordered half of the amount of ramen that I usually order in my home village," he added, leaving the others staring at him in even greater shock. After a while, the waitress got over her initial surprise and left their table to prepare their orders. She returned a few minutes later with the food they had ordered and set it on the table, and the blonde-haired boy started eating his breakfast right away, slurping the 8 bowls of various flavors with amazing speed. "Ah, this place has excellent ramen. Oh, and maybe for a midnight snack too," Naruto concluded. "I will definitely come here again to have some for lunch and dinner," he said. "Is it acceptable for you to eat ramen every meal, Naruto?" Sukune asked his friend inquisitively. "Why, of course, Sukune," Naruto said with a wise nod. "The food of the gods is ramen. Never undervalue the power of ramen." Naruto deadpanned, but his other friend didn't think the same thing. "Naruto, that is not at all healthy." Mocha reprimanded her friend with the blonde hair, saying, "You should be eating healthier foods instead of ramen for every meal, for your own benefit." "Oh come on, Mocha, I'm fine, really," Naruto defended himself, adding, "You've only eaten tomato juice and blood for as long as I've known you, so it's not like you eat healthy foods either." "What kind of nutritious food is that?" The vampire girl blushed in shame as he asked. But I'm a vampire." In an attempt to refute Naruto's claim, Mocha said, "It's in my nature to drink blood and tomato juice. And I eat other food too, sometimes. As you mentioned about yourself, it's in our nature." "Yeah, sure, you're a vampire and I love ramen," Naruto replied. Naruto said, "You drink blood and I eat ramen. How about we do this? I'll eat something else with you later, but first you have to try ramen, my treat. Does that sound good?" Sukune, Kurumu, and Mocha were all thinking the same thing. Did Naruto just ask me, Mocha-san, or her out? Their facial expressions demonstrated that the question was on their minds. Sukune's face was unrecognizable. The young succubus had a cunning smile. Naruto appeared perplexed, and Mocha's face was as red as a tomato. Have I said something incorrectly? Naruto thought to himself, why'd I suddenly have this uneasy feeling? Usually when I feel like this, something bad happens to me. He shuddered a little. Oh, you're such a naughty boy, Naruto, Kurumu said loudly so everybody present in the cafeteria could hear her voice. She continued on, a sly smile on her face. You're asking Youkai Academy's most cute and beautiful girl, second only to me. She paused for a moment to add a dramatic effect to her little speech before continuing. You ask Akashiya Mocha to go on a date with you, and you succeed in making her blush this red? She gestured to the girl with the pink hair. Hot? Naruto and all the other males present there, except Sukune and most of Kurumu's fans, jumped out of their seat and shouted together in disbelief. The pink-haired vampire looked down at her hands on her lap, squeezing her skirt tightly. Some hair covered her face, but not enough to conceal her blush from the curious observers. She didn't say anything, though. To be more precise, she couldn't say anything at this moment. She just wanted the world to stop so she could run away to hide her embarrassment. She didn't even know why she felt this way. Did she have a crush on Naruto? No, it couldn't be. He is a human and she still couldn't completely trust him, even though he had already saved her twice. To top it off, she has only known him for 3 days, so that couldn't be the reason, right? However, her thoughts were cut off by a laughing voice nearby. Ha ha ha, look at your face. I should have brought a camera with me to capture this moment. Come on Kurumu-chan, don't be like that, Sukune reprimanded the girl, receiving an annoyed look from Kurumu, similar to that of a child when their toy was taken away. I mean, look at Mocha-san, he gestured towards the pink-haired vampire. She almost fainted because of the embarrassment that you put her through. Kurumu felt a little bad. She had only wanted to tease the two a little. She didn't think Mocha's reaction would be this severe. She thought that Mocha would defend herself by denying it or something like that, but it seems that her prediction was wrong after all. On the other hand, being the succubus that she is, Kurumu knew almost everything about love. Her mother had taught her well. She could tell from the girl's expression that Mocha had taken a liking towards a certain blonde, but said blonde didn't seem to have a clue about the entire situation. Well, I think it would be better if I stay out of this for now, said Kurumu. But if one of them needs a little push to admit their feeling towards each other later, I will gladly help them. Okay Sukune, I understand, Kurumu said. She turned to the crowd and shouted once again, making everybody look at her. Enough staring, return to running your own company. Her yell caused everyone in the vicinity to return to their prior pursuits. Naruto returned to his seat and said, Kurumu, what was that for? Oh, I just want to tease you two a bit, but it seems like I overdid it a little, Kurumu said. I'm sorry, Naruto, Mocha. Okay I guess, replied Naruto. I don't think it's that bad. I always pranked people in my village when I was a little kid. Mocha pouted sweetly. You're so mean, Kurumu, but she was still thinking about what she had just said. All right, I apologize. I swear, Kurumu said, I won't do it again. You know, it won't have to come to this if you just acknowledge your feelings. Sukune, Naruto, and Mocha all said, Kurumu, together. Kurumu said, okay, geez just chill already, and he apologized. Shall we just put the subject aside and go on to something else? Yes, I agree with Kurumu-chan, Sukune responded. We should talk about something else. For obvious reasons, everyone nodded in agreement with Sukune's suggestion, especially Mocha, and they shifted the conversation away from the previous subject to other subjects, such as school, some fresh rumors, and so forth. A certain pink-haired girl brought up a different subject after they had been chatting and laughing for a few minutes. Mocha began by saying, well, I actually have a question. How do you, Naruto, have power that a normal human shouldn't have? Because that's how awesome I am. In an attempt to divert the conversation, Naruto asked another question, but sadly, his friends were interested in his power and didn't want to bring it up. Yes, I'm interested in it too, Naruto, Sukune remarked. If it's feasible, could you teach me how to protect myself and assist you in combat if necessary? Kurumu and Mocha looked at the blonde, waiting for a response, and as they weren't sure if they could always be there to help him, the idea of Naruto telling them about his power and teaching the human boy how to use it sounded really appealing to the group. They thought it was a good idea for Naruto to teach Sukune to use his power because he would be able to defend himself should the situation call for it. However, the blonde had his own opinions and wasn't sure whether or not to tell them about his power. On the one hand, he wanted to keep his power a secret for a little while longer. Should I tell them? I'm not sure if I can keep this a secret any longer. But we haven't even met for 3 days, he asked himself. Can I truly have enough faith in them to keep this a secret from everyone else? However, he shouldn't lie to them because they're his friends. How will I respond? Oh, he thought, perhaps that will work. I'll just share a few of my secrets with them. They've already witnessed me in action, so it won't hurt. Naruto eventually turned to face his friends and grinned after deciding what to say. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be late for Ririko Sensei's class. Hey, the first class is about to begin, he said after pausing for a second. As he began to leave the cafeteria and head toward the academy building, Naruto remarked, she is scary. Sweating, Mocha, Sukune, and Kurumu thought Naruto would respond to their query, but they were wrong. He didn't even wait for them before leaving. How could he? Naruto. Sukune grabbed the blonde's body, while Mocha and Kurumu each held one of his arms as the three yelled and hurried to catch up with him. Kurumu told her blonde classmate, you won't get away so easily, Naruto, in a firm tone. Yes, Kurumu. Chan is correct, Naruto, you will inform us, Sukune said to his fellow human companion. We'll be late to Ririko Sensei's class, so hurry up. Naruto attempted to defend himself, but he had one more friend who was waiting for her turn to question him. She promised to punish me severely if I made another mistake in her class. Naruto, why did you just abandon our question and walk away like that? Looking directly into his eyes, Mocha asked. When Naruto saw her bright green puppy eyes, he gulped and cursed his good fortune, saying to himself, damn, she has puppy eyes no jutsu, how can I get out of this? The puppy eyes no jutsu worked wonders, he thought, but he got no response. Naruto mentally noted that the first thing he would do if he managed to return home and become the next Hokage would be to declare it an S-rank forbidden jutsu. Okay, he said at last, I'll tell you everything when school is out. When he said those words, his friends' faces instantly brightened, and they couldn't wait for school to end. The four of them then walked together to their classroom. Lessons today were essentially the same as those from yesterday, and the students once again had to put up with a dull day. In the first lesson, Ririko Sensei appeared to be as animated as ever as she taught math, and a certain brown-haired teacher with round glasses drilled them once more on solving geometric problems. Mocha, the only member of Naruto's group paying attention to the lesson, appeared sufficiently engaged in it, taking notes in her notepad while listening to the female teacher's explanation. Though he didn't seem as interested as the pink-haired vampire, Sukune also seemed to be listening to the explanation Ririko Sensei was giving. The young human boy had already yawned multiple times since the class began 15 minutes ago. A certain blonde was feigning to pay attention to the attractive teacher's explanation, but he was actually not paying any attention to her at all, as his thoughts were currently consumed by an internal argument. Naruto cursed himself for not holding back when he fought against the orc, but was his anger toward Saizo, who almost raped his Mocha Chan, the reason behind his rage? Naruto knew his friends would eventually question him about his power, and he was already aware of the possibility of being discovered because of his encounter with Saizo 2 days prior. Hold on, what did he just say? His Mocha Chan? How long has he been calling her that? Naruto couldn't deny that his pink-haired vampire friend was attractive and had captured his attention, but he still didn't want to be in a relationship with anyone at this time. It must be because of Kurumu and her teasing this morning that made me think that way, Naruto thought. Naruto couldn't allow himself to become attached to this world or any one person because he still had obligations as a Konoha shinobi, no matter where he was. He also needed to find a way to return to his home village because he didn't want to become overly attached to his new friends. If he could find a way to return to his home village, neither he nor his friends would be upset about his departure. In light of that, he made the decision that he shouldn't become any closer to his new friends than he already was. Now that one issue was resolved, Naruto turned his attention to the other, as he still needed time to decide whether he trusted his new friends enough to keep his secrets and didn't anticipate that they would question him about his power so quickly. He was concerned about the worst-case scenario that could occur if members of the Youkai world found out about him and his tenant, and what would happen if his secret about the Jubi being sealed inside his body was revealed to the Youkai community? Oh no, that haughty vampire with silver hair. How come she couldn't stop talking? Why in the world did she have to inform them that I have a demon inside of me? When the sudden thought occurred to Naruto, he sneered. He was certain that the Jubi was the most potent force in his world, but he wasn't sure if that was true in Youkai world. If it were the same here, he could imagine a few possible outcomes if his secret was revealed. First, most of them would be afraid of him and avoid him. This was a natural rule that the weak would always be afraid of those who were stronger than them. He didn't want anything like that to happen in the future. He didn't mind if people were afraid of him, but the thought of them avoiding him only brought back painful memories from his early years. Naruto didn't want this to happen either. He wouldn't mind sparring with these monsters a few times, but the idea of having to battle them every day for the rest of his life wasn't pleasant. The second possibility was that the stronger creatures out there wouldn't believe him and would come and try to take him down in the hopes of finishing him off and taking pride in killing the Jubi. The third possibility was that he would be targeted by some strange group or insane scientist who would try to kidnap him, experiment on him, turn him into a breeding machine, or do other horrible things he couldn't fathom. He really didn't want anything like this to happen to him. He considered 3 scenarios, but none of them seemed good to him. He was to be hunted, feared, or avoided for the rest of his life in this world. This thought made him even less inclined to share his secret with his friends. Should I let them know about this or not? Even though Naruto had previously made plans to share his secrets with his friends, he couldn't help but feel uneasy about the whole thing. He also couldn't deny that he had already promised to share his power with his friends after school. He hadn't promised to share the Jubi with them, but he was certain that they would ask him about it if he shared his power. Naruto went on with his thoughts. Well, I'm left with no choice but to tell them about this, and I hope nothing bad happens after I tell them. A certain blue-haired succubus was looking around her class, not even paying attention to the lesson, while our favorite blonde was having his own internal argument. Kurumu eventually turned to look at her 2 new male friends, and she had different opinions about them. She was particularly interested in Naruto because of Mocha's statement from yesterday that he was a human with a powerful demon sealed inside of him. Kurumu had never heard of a demon being sealed inside someone, so she was curious about it. Perhaps she could use it as a hot gossip item. Kurumu let out a relieved sigh when Ririko-sensei waved her interruption off and resumed her lesson. Kurumu giggled a little at her little thought, which caused Ririko-sensei to give her an angry glare. Not wanting to upset the math teacher, she immediately closed her mouth tightly and pretended to make a note in her book. Because she didn't want to think about her past right now, she started to observe her new brown-haired friend. She had terrible memories of the human race and always believed that they were the worst race that had ever existed. Kurumu still didn't understand this human at all. She had wronged him in numerous ways, but he didn't even get mad at her, even though he had every right to take revenge if he so desired. This human refused to get upset over her violent behavior. He had already forgiven her for her transgressions, and the hardest thing for Kurumu to understand was why he had forgiven her. What kind of justification did he give her? He wanted to be her friend. Odd. But his bravery did open her eyes. He was a mere human standing in front of her to protect her from an S-class vampire. Did he go insane somewhere? Why was he defending a stranger who was attempting to harm him? Maybe, not all humans are as bad as I had thought, Kurumu reflected. Could I trust him? Could he be my destined one? She asked herself. The blue-haired succubus, like the rest of her race, had someone out there who was her destined one. This had been known since she was born. Her only goal was to find him, which is why she had made an effort to attract as much attention as she could. She hoped that one of the men she captivated with her charm was her destined one. Kurumu wasn't stupid. Even if she wasn't the smartest, she wouldn't declare Sukune her destined one because he had saved her once. She wouldn't rush things, even if she didn't deny that Sukune was a handsome boy. And, well, suffocating her friend with her enormous bosom didn't fit the definition of too quickly in her mind. Kurumu thought, I will look into it later. For now, I can't wait the lesson to finish. I'm curious to find out about Naruto. She was on the verge of giggling once more, but she stopped herself before the math teacher could reprimand her. The remainder of today's lessons were fairly standard. They covered history, economics, English, and even some fundamental information about the human world. Similar to the first lesson, Mocha was the only one who appeared to be paying close attention to the teachers. Sukune and Kurumu merely listened to their teacher's lectures without really paying attention. Naruto didn't even bother to listen. His friends had seen him staring blankly out the window on several occasions. They were a little concerned about him, but they chose to question him about it later. After the lessons for the day were over, the majority of the students had already left the academy building, but Naruto and his small group weren't. Most students. They chose to go to the rooftop, just like they had done yesterday, because they had decided that it was the best place to get some privacy, which was exactly what they needed. Upon reaching the rooftop, the 4 friends took a seat in a small circle, with Mocha seated close to the wall, Naruto to her right, Sukune to Naruto's right, and Kurumu behind them. It was difficult enough to persuade Naruto to agree with them and tell them about himself, so they didn't waste this chance. They sat there in silence for a few moments, but no one seemed as interested in hearing about Naruto's power as they were this morning. It's odd that Naruto initiated the conversation by asking, "What do you want to know?" He began by saying, "I'll answer your questions, so don't be shy and ask away." Naruto was trying to make his friends feel more at ease and allow some questions to go unanswered because if they were being extremely serious, there was no doubt that they would ask risky questions that he wasn't prepared to respond to. If I may ask first, Mocha said, I would like to know what strategies you employed against Saizo and my other self, she asked, lowering her voice at the end. It appeared that she had not moved past the altercation and was still a little embarrassed by what her other self had done the day before. Yes, Mocha. It's time for you to move past yesterday's actions. Please, it's not your fault. Sukune and Kurumu nodded as Naruto spoke. First, those clones you saw before were called Cage Bunshin, and this spiraling sphere. Naruto went on, showing them the blue energy ball in his hand. His friends looked at it curiously as he explained, is called a Rasengan. Sukune inquired, how did you create those, Naruto? You had said that you're a human like me, out of curiosity. He reasoned that if Naruto could do it, perhaps he could too, given enough practice. Naruto said, I did those techniques using chakra, in response. Kurumu questioned the blonde boy, what's chakra, Naruto? I've never heard of it before. I knew you'd ask, Naruto laughed. Well, to make it easier for you to understand, it is basically the molding of the physical energy and spiritual energy in every human's body.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.